for me to wish comrade Chido Onumah at 60 years of age, without going back to when he was barely 20. Chido Onumah, who is now 60, moved into the revolutionary struggle, into revolutionary consciousness, at the University of Calabar, as a first-year student, I think, of philosophy. There he met a revolutionary movement, a socialist revolutionary movement called Movement for Progressive Nigeria, MPN, and was also introduced that same period, early 20s, to Marxism, and later on to revolutionary Marxism, when it was becoming easy for anybody whatsoever in the university, becoming a tradition, becoming a thing to be proud of, to be called a Marxist. The tendency which he joined with Comrade Bene and myself laid the foundation in the University of Calabar in the mid-1970s, was still alive in that university. Comrade Kayode Komolafe, KK, was a member of the first generation of that movement, which Comrade Chido joined when he entered the university, and continue to be in the leadership and inspirer of that tendency which Chido inherited and has continued to champion till today. When Comrade Chido came in, I joined it in the early 20s. It is really miraculous for me. Like something moving with the speed of light. Like today, I'm wishing him happy birthday at 60. Comrade Chido is celebrating the age of 60 at the time the leadership of our own tendency of socialist revolution, Marxism, is being regenerated with new leadership taking shape.
Hello and welcome. This is a special edition of 90 Minutes Africa. My name is Rudolph Okonkwo. Today on 90 Minutes Africa, we welcome a special friend, a founder, co-founder of the show, and more importantly, a friend, Dr. Chido Onumah. On March 5th, 2022, we premiered this show, 90 Minutes Africa. This was how it started.
I'm in principle in support of the what is called power shift now, that power should move from one region to the other, and the North has been in power for the last 7 years. The Southern minorities have had a chance to rule, which for me, although I was a great critic of Jonathan, I'm gratified by the fact that someone from there, got a chance to rule. So I support that. I would also support the ceding of power to the Southeast, because that's the region of the country that has never produced a president from 1999 until now. Not even a vice president, right? Yeah, not even a vice president. So that's a part of the country that I think should produce the next president.
That was 4 years ago. And you see, I've grown older because Chido left the whole responsibility for me and went on assignment. Today, he's back to give us a report on that assignment he's been on. Chido, for those who do not know, is the author of several books, including Nigeria is Negotiable, Time to Reclaim Nigeria, We Are All Biafrans. He's currently making a living as coordinator of African Center for Media and Information Literacy. Please join me in welcoming to the show, Chido Onumah, PhD. Chido, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Rudolph.
Dr. Things are. Do you still remember how to operate the system?
I do. I didn't. Well, I mean, I partially went into the jungle, but in the jungle, we still have internet and other new technology devices. So I'll try.
Nice to have you here, and happy birthday to you. You recently celebrated your 60th birthday.
Yes, I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
At the beginning of the show, I played Eddie Manago, my uncle. You are a teacher, and I felt that there's nobody better to introduce you, for him to appear and introduce you to, and wish you a bit. It's a big deal. I remember many years ago at the Guardian, he would walk me down from his office to the gate. It was the biggest honor he could give. He wouldn't even give it to Ganefa or me or anybody, but he will walk you. If you walk, it was like,
it was a lot more than giving you money for transport or anything.
Oh yeah, he used to give me money every time I go to the office. He would say, I know they are not paying you. I know they are not paying you. Take this 20 naira. And it was big money that time. People don't understand. But anyway, we'll get to all those things and get to your life and everything, what has been going on. But first of all, let me start by saying, you're in Abuja. How is the country? Do we still have a country?
Yeah, the country is here. I guess our resilience is seeing us through. Hopefully, we'll continue to march along until that dawn that will bring us the new era of greatness, of a nation of equity and equality that would make us join the ranks of developed nations around the world, countries that whether you're looking at agriculture, they'll tell you, some people, you mentioned Singapore. Was it Malaysia or Singapore that they said came to Nigeria in the 60s or early 70s to take palm
kernel?
kernel, and today they are the largest exporters of. It's always painful talking about Nigeria because, as you know too well, Nigeria is a nation of great potentials, but we've remained that a nation of great potentials. How do we transform this potential into greatness, into something that benefits the greater majority of our people? Is the main concern, and it's what keeps me up at night, to use your common expression.
Yeah, we forgot that long ago. But let me ask you: you've been in this business of trying to find solutions to Nigeria's problems for a long time. Are you not tired? What gives you the energy to
I'm,
keep?
I'm, I'm not. Then you ask yourself, what is there to do? I'm 60. I've been living outside Nigeria for the past 3 decades. 30 years now. I've lived in different parts of the world: Canada, the United States, India, Spain, Ghana, and so on. And there's really no place for me like Nigeria. For others, maybe. I've experienced the best of the worlds around. There is no place like home. And again, from an ideological and political point of view, it seems for someone like me who has spent the better part of his life from my preteen years, my consciousness about Nigeria actually started about 40 years ago this February, when I was a 10-year-old in primary 4 at Army Children's School in Apapa, when the Dinka coup happened. I was in school that morning when the coup happened, and I was in a military primary school. So you can imagine the scenario. Those days we used to go, wake up very early. By 5:30, we were on our way to school because our parents would wake up and start heading out to work and all of that. So the community kids will all walk. By 6, 6:15 a.m., we were already in school. So we were in school when we heard, gunshots. And looking back now, I just finished reading a book by one of the leaders of the coup of 1990 that tried to overthrow the Babangida regime, and getting a sense of how this whole military coup business worked. I think the school I was one of the major signal barracks within the state that time, and this was during the period when the military establishment was actually in Lagos, with the seat of power at Dodan Barracks in Ikoyi, Lagos. So as kids, we didn't know what to make. I had friends whose parents were senior officers in the military. We had some of my classmates, their parents were colonels, were brigadier. A few of my classmates didn't return to school after the 76 coup. And we started asking questions at young people. And of course, a lot of stories around. It was so frightening for a 10-year-old how we were sheltered that day before our parents came to pick us up, kind of pushed the school. For those of us who were in school that early, they just moved us, sequestered us into some room, and it was so frightening. People were crying, they didn't know what to do. I mean, that was the beginning. You have that kind of experience. It doesn't leave you. So for 40 years, I spent my time trying to understand how a nation could go through that. And as I kept studying and looking at the scenario, the election of 79 happened. By then, I'd become even more conscious of the political situation. By 1983, when Buhari was overthrown, I'd already come out of secondary school. So I've taken interest. When you've taken interest in a particular subject matter or a particular country or situation, it's hard to let go. And that interest has stayed with me for 40 years. So I feel, and then doing my research or study, I've also convinced myself that Nigerians are the ones who can and will ultimately find answers to the problem of Nigeria. And I don't begrudge anybody who decides to leave for better life outside this country. They deserve it. The country has not served its purpose. But also for some of us who have taken, beyond passing interest in what happens in this country, it's hard to be anywhere else. Even when I'm outside the country, I think about the country. I worry about the country, and I try to understand what is going on. And maybe at 60 now, I'm slowing down in terms of, as I don't do much writing, and perhaps that also explains why I've been AWOL on this very fantastic show we started 4 years ago. Age is catching up on me. But I think just as I started thinking about Nigeria from my experience in 1976, 40 years down the line, I've also come to the conclusion that some of these episodic comments about Nigeria is not going to solve anything. So whether there is light, there can be light. It doesn't matter under this current structure and way we do things in Nigeria, whether no matter who is the leader of this country, it's going to be difficult. So I've come to the conclusion that there are basic structural deficiencies that Nigeria suffers from, and until we deal with that, we can't get our politics right. We can't get our democracy. I hear people say, "Oh, democracy is not for us. Democracy is not for the black man." There's nothing wrong with democracy if we define democracy as the rule of one person, one man or one woman, one vote. So to that extent, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing wrong with democracy. You can have socialist democracy, you can have capitalist democracy. So in your American, your capitalist democracy, it's money that rules. Even though you guys pretend to say one man or one person, one vote, at the end of the day, for you to run for Senate in the United States, you have to have billions of dollars. You have to have the military industrial complex behind you. You have to have all kinds of group, but you claim, you pretend you are a democratic nation. So for me, the challenge is not democracy. The challenge is the structural foundational imbalance. And how do you restore that? Looking at both the military, political, and social upheavals in this country, I've come to the conclusion. I think one of your guests, somebody like Shuore, has repeatedly emphasized this, that it's only a revolution that can bring us anywhere close to restructuring or getting that structure right, that can then begin the process of building a modern egalitarian society. We can't find the answer in party politics or election. Whatever is happening now, if you read the book, The Psychology of the Nigerian Revolution, almost all the things that we see today, whether what is happening at the executive level or the legislative level, were things that happened, in since the beginning of time in 1959, the first so-called national election we had in 64, and so on. Nothing has changed really. Maybe the personalities have changed and the scenarios have changed, but fundamentally nothing has changed. And I agree completely with someone like Odia Ofemu, who said we've never had an election in this country from the very beginning. So I don't want to pay too much attention to those issues or topics, because the more fundamental thing of fixing the country, the structure of the country, explaining why certain things are the way they are, whether it's in the control of resource, and so on, whether it's in the number of representation of certain people or the fact that certain regions feel alienated or feel marginalized, and all those things are, for me, that's the conversation that should be going on now. The conversation around nation building rather than what we're having. But I think I've spoken for too long. Let me allow you to ask the questions. Yeah.
No, it's all good. It's all good. You forgot how we do it, but it's good. I want you to air your view. You just blocked me from even asking questions because I wanted to ask you about the political scene today. But if the idea is that what we need is really revolution, we need to change the structure of things. It doesn't matter who is the president. That at the end it will be the same thing. So then the question is, okay, so there's no need talking about how the election is, what will happen in next
Yeah.
year.
So I mean, people can talk because people are we're wired to do the talking. It's a means of survival or livelihood. It's part of our daily existence. So we can talk about it. But I'm saying personally, I've written about these things. It's difficult for me to start talking about it because I don't see any. So you look at the parties, I don't see any difference in the parties. At my birthday ceremony, for example, what Dr. Obi Ezekwesili had looked politicians in the eyes and said she said two very important raised two very important salient points about how that these are not politicians or elite in the classical sense of it. So these are just migrants. They move from one place. So it's like we had, birds of migration where food they move seasonal thing. So what kind of change do you expect from that kind of political situation? And then you do not have, so why talk about the elite, Nigerian elite, an elite that is perhaps the most bankrupt and indolent in the world, unproductive? It just lives off. We are in a rent society. This elite lives off. They don't produce anything. They have no capacity to produce, or they are not creative. Even if they can't produce, they can't induce production, and so on. All they are interested is in political power every 4 years, and any platform that gives them that power, they will gravitate towards that platform. It's an elite that even enlightened self-interest does not mean anything to them. They do not understand that you need to have a country, and a functional one at that, and a stable one at that, before you can even rip off the country or make money out of it. It's an elite that, they will be in power for 50 years. They can't fix, even in their own backyard or in their states or wherever they call their own, they can't fix schools so that their children can go to those schools. They can't fix hospitals so they won't have to die in Egypt or Syria or Afghanistan or New York or Paris or something. So that's the kind of elite you're dealing with. How do you begin to analyze what do you want to do? It's sheer waste of time to begin to analyze what this kind of elite will give you, as far as I'm concerned. So that's why I save myself the trauma, because again, I've written about this country for 3 decades. Each time I pick up, as a young man, I started writing first for the Punch newspapers in my mid-20s. And there are days I would come back. I was a young man, no family, just by myself. I could write 2-3 articles in a day. Today, I pick up a pen, and maybe this can also answer the question of, I pick up a pen. I struggle for 3 months to write an essay of 800, 1,000 words. And I'm wondering, what could be the problem? Is it old age, or just simply the fact that, look, you feel that you've written everything there is to write? And I think I owe myself. And for those who are asking where I've been, and I've been AWOL for 4 years. First of all, I don't know whether I should talk about that now
No,
or come back.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. It's interesting because what you're expressing is similar to what Okenide has been saying, you know, about the kind of feeling that why they are not writing, people like them and people like you are not writing, is that you've done it for a long time. And my question is, in other countries, you have journalists who stay there until they die, 90s, in their 80s, writing a column for New York Times. What is the difference? It's not as if America is constantly progressing. You know, they are not going to look back and say, oh, I started writing in the 80s. America is better now. I can retire. But they continue to write. America is getting bad, you know, and they are still there putting in their own voice into the conversation.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I would say maybe it's also circumstantial. So, for example, now I live in Abuja. If you want to write, so many people do not pay a lot of attention to how far the country has degenerated. And maybe you probably will not understand this because you live in a society where there is constant electricity. So you wake up in the morning, you're struggling between how to charge your phone, charge your computer, even though you are supposed to have electricity, you have a generating set, you have an inverter at home. So I'm giving you a typical scenario. The electricity goes off for much of the day. Your inverter is working to supply, give you from sunlight, give you additional power so you can manage, because then the inverter may not, the weather is very hot here, the inverter may not take everything, maybe 1 or 2 ACs, depending on how big your house is. By 6 p.m., sun sets, your inverter packs up. You then switch to generator. You run the generator till midnight. So you have one eye on ensuring that the fuel doesn't get exhausted in the generating set, and then doing other things. So in all of this, you're let's say you're writing, you're writing, and you are a writer yourself. You know how distracting and destabilizing it can be. So you're writing, you're thinking about inverter, you're thinking about generator, you're thinking that your laptop will go off anytime, your phone will go off anytime. You're managing all these complexities. Then you also worry about your food. You just prepared some nice nsala soup last night. You're thinking you're moving it from the fridge to the freezer to make sure it doesn't spoil. You're checking the freezer, which one is cold. How do you're jostling all of this? How do you even, have you guys asked yourself, like, how do you survive as a Nigerian when you have to deal with these little things that a number of people have taken for granted? So it's difficult for, say, you being a Nigerian, or you get into the traffic situation, or so many other things that happen around you, or the fact that you're pressured, you're getting calls from family and friends, you're thinking, oh, how do I support this person or support that person? It distracts you, it takes your mind away from what you're doing. I mean, people who write books and other things, why do they take off time, maybe go to some nice island? Because you need the best environment possible to write. To write here is a task. It's like you're doing manual labor, literally using your shovel and axe to dig the ground. That's what it means. And I praise those who continue. There are a number of the number of writers out there who have written for many years and continue to write. Somebody like Sonola, for example, he started writing before some of us, of course, Azubike Ezekwene. The number of them continue to do. And yeah, sometimes it could also be personal. You know, you feel this pressure, you just want to give up and you're overwhelmed with the circumstance and scenario. But that's not to say you've given up on the country. When every now and then you talk about the situation, I'm on your show now. You saw how tough it was even getting on the show. So what I've decided to do in the last few years was really to put, instead of just doing these weekly columns, because I've then come to this conclusion that there are certain basic things that need to be put in place or done for this country to move forward. So I'm trying to put that together into a book. And it's been a struggle for me. I think after, if I manage to finish that book, I don't think I want to do anything serious about Nigeria. Like, I've laid bare what I think and what I know based on. So what I've also done is spent the better part of the last 3-4 years doing a lot of reading. I've read some of the best book I think people should read about Nigeria. For example, I've read the book about what's it called? I talked about the psychology of the Nigerian Revolution. It was written in the 70s by one radical lecturer from the University of Lagos. I've read the book by Formation by Feyi Fawemi and his friend. There is the book My Life by Sir Amadu Bello. I think every Nigerian who is able to read and write should read that book, because it's at the heart of understanding why we are where we are today as a people. I've read a number of other histories of nations and so on. So I'm trying to piece all of this together to provide a better understanding of where we're coming from, why we haven't made progress, and where we need to be as a people.
At the beginning of this show, I played Eddie Manago introducing you. Talking from Calabar about you at 60, and he will be 80 in the next few days.
Yeah, weeks. Yeah.
1 month from now, I think. So he will be 80. Yeah. So when you are 80 now, in next 20 years, when you will be 80, what will you be saying about Nigeria?
I won't be saying anything other than the fact that I've done this book. I've just been asking young people like you and others to go to go look at the book and take any aspect of the book that they are interested in. Again, talking about book, there's the book by Lord Lugard, but the book around amalgamation, a fantastic book. So one of the things I'm hoping I can do is to tease out all these arguments by these different authors that people haven't paid much attention to. They've read them, but they haven't paid much attention to these materials, and bring them to the conversation, whether it's about how the country came into being, whether because when you look at Nigeria, when I talk about fundamentals and the potentials of Nigeria, you see, Nigeria could have been 3 countries at independence, even 4 a few years after independence. There is no reason the 3 regions, the northern, western, and eastern region at independence, couldn't have been 3 distinct nations. It happened to India. In fact, India ultimately became 3 nations, the original Indian colony. In 1947, Pakistan, and then the other one that came out in Bangladesh in 1973. So you look at us, how have we managed to stay together? How did we decide to stay together? If we decided to stay together, why haven't we been able to function effectively once we agree to stay together? So for me, I hope I live up to 80, and I think I most likely would consider the fact that my father will be 96 in August. So if we pray to be better than our father, maybe I'll live till 100, but we never can tell.
Now,
This is
let's go back to Eddie. And I know you meet him and you talk to him all the time. How does he feel? What is his feeling about the state of the nation and the struggle he put in all those years?
again. I'm happy you brought out Comrade Eddie's intervention. He also the same thing. I was talking to, I don't remember exactly now, either the son or the daughter now, about, like, so to tell you how depressing the situation can be. And I hope I don't get to that stage. I'm just 60 and I'm talking about feeling alienated in terms of my interest in, not my interest in Nigeria, but writing as much as I would ordinarily want to about the country. Eddie himself has stopped writing. The last thing he wrote was, I think, when his lifelong partner, Comrade Bene Madunagu, passed in November. She passed in November 2024. She was buried early last year. I think Eddie wrote sometime last year about her. Since then, he hasn't written, even when his close comrade and friend, Professor Biodu Jeyifo, passed, it was hard to get him to even pen a few paragraphs of
Tributes.
tributes to him. The same thing for my birthday. Understandably so, age, you're fatigued, but even on the other aspect of getting tired of talking about the same thing, you've been talking about this for 50 years. Nothing has changed. I think it's exhausting, but it's also gratifying because then you've written. So when I spoke to one of the kids about, and we were talking how they were teasing him or persuading him to continue to write, I said, look, you don't need to trouble this old man. There is nothing you need to know about Nigeria that he hasn't written. Can you go back to his writing? Those things he wrote in the past are not meant to be left there. So for some of us, I mean, I did have, remember, the book on the socialist revolution, radical politics in Nigeria, and so many. So once in a while, there is a fantastic book on understanding Nigeria and the new imperialism that myself, Biodu Jeyifo, Kayode Fayomi, Kayode Komolafe, and Bene Madunagu I did. If I want to understand Trump and the craziness that is going on in the world, I just go to Eddie and read a few chapters of his book, and I understand, almost like he was prescient, what's it called?
Prophet.
A prophet. Thank you. So there is nothing new, as they would say, nothing new under the sun. Why do you just go back to what this man wrote 15, 20, 30 years ago? Nothing is new, except we just enjoy that feeling of having to read this person or having them to write. Okay, they write, I like to read. Yeah. And then they write, what's going to happen? Nothing. If you read that, you just enjoy it for the moment and move on. So what I would rather do, and that's what we are hoping, what we're doing at the Socialist Library in Calabar, Socialist Library of Nigeria, based in Calabar, which is one of the legacies of Comrade Eddie and Bene, to make these works widely available as possible, so that they can become the basis or foundation for conversation or discussion. Just as Comrade Eddie mentioned, when we were in the universities in the late 80s in Nigeria, we were reading their works, but we were also reading the writings of much older comrades, Escott Toyo and people like that. If we don't, which is what the current generation of Nigerians do not have. So you go to school, you're confronted the very moment you enter the university. It's the student, what's it called now? The religious unions that will confront you first and give you their tracks, and like nobody is welcoming you with some political, ideological, or social materials to read and understand your environment and why we need to change society the way it's presently constituted. So for me, the task really is to bring back these ideas, bring back these thoughts, and use them in analyzing the current situation. If people can write, why not? I welcome them to write, and those who seem to be tired and weary, we allow them. It's all part of the writing process. Sometimes you just want to give up, you just get tired, you're fatigued, and all of that. It could be for personal reasons, health, social reasons, family reasons, all kinds of reasons. But it's always good and refreshing when you know that you can go back to the works of these people and see what they've done in the past and bring it to bear on the current situation.
All right. For those who are watching at home, thank you so much. We're going to let you join the conversation after a few more minutes when we talk about why he disappeared from this show and all the other stories. Before we continue, I want to know, during your birthday celebration, I saw Nuhu Ribado, the National Security Advisor. He was there. I saw like former ministers of Nigeria, and some of your friends on the left were wondering whether you have moved into the bourgeoisie family. What's the relationship? What's going on?
Okay, so it's interesting, and that to a great extent just explains my personality, who I am. And if you listen closely, unfortunately, I hear the video review of the event. The audio didn't go out well. So even when you look at somebody like Obi Ezekwesili, who is progressive, fantastic lady, and so on, and she started by her conversation by congratulating me and noting that even though we are disagree ideologically, and all, she comes from the background of the IMF and World Bank, and these are two institutions that I find reprehensible. And as a young man in college, I've worked all my life to how would I put it, to oppose everything they stand for. But she was there because we've collaborated on a number of things. She has this fantastic school of politics and governance, School of Policy, Politics and Governance, SPPG, that I'm on the faculty. I've been teaching in that school for about 4 or 5 years now. And she said, yeah, that I'm here, even though we disagree ideologically and all of that, that I would like to describe Chido as my favorite socialist. That even though that he's not as dogmatic as a number of socialists or Marxists you will find, he's someone who, where you provide data or evidence, he's convinced and he's able to run with that. I mean, this is just one person's opinion, but just to answer your question directly, a number of the people you saw there are friends that I've known for decades. So Kayode Fayemi, for example, he's just a year or close to a year older than me. When we were in our 30s, we worked closely with Wole Soyinka. We were in the front lines of the anti-Abacha struggle. And the fact that he later became a big man, governor, minister, and all of that hasn't changed anything. Some people brought the former governor of Osun State, Rauf Aregbesola, later minister for interior. We've been friends during the political transition, in the country. There was a time I was kind of active when again my principal, who is now the NSA, ventured into politics. So I met some of these people and we became friends. And you can't possibly do this, something like this, without inviting your friends. It's not. So we had a symposium, we had a topic. It had. I made sure that going back to the issue I talked about at the beginning of the conversation, that what I feel that this is what ails Nigeria, what we need to do or fix for the country to move forward, which for me is the whole idea of formation or nation building. I thought that my birthday would be an opportune time to raise that question about whether we got it wrong when the country was formed in 1914, or when the country was granted independence in 1960. What went wrong? Was it the leadership we got at independence, which was literally handed over to us by the British? You look at Nigeria and you see that Nigeria is perhaps the only country where those who were in the forefront of the anti-colonial struggle missed out. In Kenya, you had Jomo Kenyatta. In Tanzania, you had Julius Nyerere. In Ghana, you had Kwame Nkrumah. In Zambia, you had Kenneth Kaunda, and so on. And these were people who had an idea of vision of a Ghanaian nation built in. So I wanted to stress that point, and anybody who found that comfortable to come was free to come around and share their thoughts and ideas, whether you are a bourgeoisie, whether you are an elite, whether you are a proletarian or capitalist or Marxist and so on. As long as I wasn't going to shy away from what my beliefs, or just use my occasion as for merrymaking and all of that. I wanted to, literally start a conversation that this is what we need to be talking about. And if you felt comfortable, at the end of the day, this country belongs to all of us. Whether in your family you have all kinds of character. I mean, you are a capitalist and you are my good friend. I'm running this show with you. I have my younger sibling in the US at the how do you be the belly of the beast, so to say, where you talk about capitalism. You can't. What do you do with them that, oh, these people are not Marxist or socialist or progressive, therefore they can't. So I set the agenda, and if you are comfortable with the agenda that I've set, you're welcome to be part of this process. That's the way I see it.
So you essentially, your prescription is that there has to be a revolution for Nigeria to go anywhere. And I'm sure that was what Eddie Manago and his group of his era talk about, that will be the best solution. So will the Nigerian left at any point say, you know what, we couldn't sell this idea to people, we failed? Or are they blaming the people for not buying the idea? Where is the problem? Why is it that revolution hasn't happened, or it's not about to happen?
Yeah, so there are two aspects of this, and it's not, you can't blame anybody really. Society is an organic living thing. It follows certain structure. It's not a dead thing. So I look at people who say, "Oh, Marxism is dead or socialism is dead," and I'm wondering, have we been able to solve 1/4 of the world's problem? There are millions, if not billions, of people who go to sleep every night without food in a world where food is being discarded and thrown away or destroyed, and all of that. People who do not have access to potable water, shelter and accommodation in a world where a few people control billions and billions of dollars and so on. And in a society or a world where people will go to war because they need to sell arms, they need to sell ammunition, they need to all these things that the military industrial complex is churning out every day. They have to. So capitalism would instigate war because they need to make profit from the military hardware that they produce and so on. So whatever you want to call it, and the revolution itself doesn't necessarily have to be okay. You say maybe is it a Marxist socialist revolution? So for me, the starting point, and there is this peculiarity about Nigeria, how the country came into being, how it was formed, and the psyche of the people, how we've lived over the years, how the ordering, we see ourselves as different. The fact that you can be born in Abuja today, which was the federal capital territory carved out from the out of the center of the country and sustained by crude oil money from the Niger Delta. You could be born here, you live here for 30 years, get married here, have a child here, you want to run for election here, and somebody tell you, oh, your name is Okonkwo, you are not from here, you have to go back to where you come from. So that's the kind of revolution I'm talking about in one breath. We need to have that revolution that re-socializes the Nigerian society, like gives ownership and control of the country to Nigeria. Then there is the other revolution, which is more ideological and economic, where you have to deal with imperialism and neocolonialism and so on. So I don't think for those older revolutionaries, Marxists and socialists who have written and talked about this country, many of them are long gone. They are not here today to see how the country has degenerated. But their writings and work continue to inspire a generation. It inspired my generation, and I'm hope it will continue to inspire the generations after us. So why is it relevant is the question. As long as there is problem, and you are a mathematician, if I'm not mistaken, like you have to you solve. So there is a problem, you have to find answers to the problem. If there is no problem, then there is nothing to find answers to. So whether we like it or not, or we want to say, oh, there is need for revolution or not, the bottom line is that there are problems that need to be dealt with. How do we deal with this problem? And if you look at the peculiarities of Nigeria, what someone like what's this Kenyan sociologist and political scientist Ali Mazuri called Nigerians exceptionalism. You see a country like Nigeria, there is, and I stand to be corrected, I don't know if there is any country in Nigeria where you have the two main religion in the world at par. Usually you have a country that is predominantly one. Yeah, I don't know of any country in the world where you have three major religion almost at par. In most places, you have one, at most two. In Nigeria, it's three. So there are a few things that are peculiar to this country, and we need to address those things. We need to address them in such a way, in a revolutionary way. So when I talk about revolution, it, it, even though I may have revolution from a Marxist or socialist point of view in mind, but also social revolution that may not necessarily require the fighting that people think of when because and recently people have been talking about how do we manage the presidency in such a way that it will go round. I doubt, if not for the accident of history that happened in the case of Jonathan, I don't know how it's possible under the current configuration that somebody from Bayelsa State in the Niger Delta can ever become the president of Nigeria. It's not going to be possible. So how do you change that? You have to be creative. You have to, your ideas have to be revolutionary to ensure that you manage our diversity, you manage the complexity that is Nigeria. But not many of us are concerned about that. Every 4 years, we get into the ritual of, presidency, this one is happening. Some of the political people in the political class are talking about balancing of the presidency. Everybody is just interested in how it suits them or it suits their immediate community. But as Nigerians, I think we need to come together and reflect on what this means. What this means for us as a people. Yeah.
Last year, when I was in Abuja, I met you with Showere. I was actually looking for the picture to see if I can show that. So when you hear someone like Showere talk about revolution, because he says similar things that, I have a video of him saying that it doesn't even matter, that this election that we are going to have will not be credible, it will not be fair, that Tinubu will rig the election. And then he said that the only solution is revolution. And I was just thinking about what you are saying now. Is it different from when Shore says that the solution to Nigeria is, let me just play the video.
Stated, and I'll say it again, Tinubu can never organize a free and fair election. It's not possible. He has never done it before, and he will not do it now. It's not in his character to do anything that is fair. Yes, somebody whose name is not his name, whose secondary school that he went to was established after he graduated from there. The daughter is almost his age. So his elder brother, who died, I think 2 years ago, was 93 years old. But he didn't attend his burial because he didn't want people to know that is his elder brother. For your information, I don't support criminals. That's why I'm not in support of Tinubu.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And that's number one criminal in this country. I'm not afraid to say it.
All right, I think I played the wrong video, but you got the idea. He talks about revolution as a solution to the problem. And is that different from your idea of a revolution that will settle some of these issues?
Yeah, so I haven't spoken with him in detail to get a sense of what he means when he talks about revolution, but I can just assume that when you talk about revolution, you want a better situation from the status quo, not the status quo and antebellum. You want a better solution from the current situation. So the revolution can be political, it can be social, it can be economic, it can be a lot of things. So yes, I share that sense that the revolution, because those who control power and controlled it from independence and they have manifested themselves. So yesterday, for example, I was part of a program to honor Dr. Noah, the cardiologist and military historian, I think, who died in 2021. Yesterday was his fifth memorial, and they published 3 books in his honor. One on the military coup of 1966, the second military coup in July 1966. And the conversation went around the fact that almost all those who took part in that coup, and they took part in that coup to salvage Nigeria, to save this country, almost all of them have been integral part of they are still in power till today. They are still the ones who have been managing the country up until now. So the Danjumas, the David Marks, the Babangidas, a few of them have passed on, like Murtala and so on. You then wonder what was the essence of that coup, for example. That those people who staged this coup to fix the country have been at the heart of its destruction. Then you look at somebody like, what's his name now? Theophilus Danjuma, who has been mentioned as one of the ringleaders in that coup, who was a young captain or major at that time, and who today, somebody who has been Minister of Defense, who has been Chief of Army Staff, and he's coming out to lambast the Nigerian army, to call the Nigerian army names and so on. And then you begin to wonder, where are we going as a people? What does that tell you? That even institutions like the military that claim to be national, whether that the change you're talking about needs to also affect them and so on. So yes, the revolution can only be in 2 parts. Whether we're talking about social revolution to change things around, okay, even how do we coexist as a people? Do we accept to live as one people? Do we want to live in a country where people do not feel the need to see themselves as second-class citizens? People can exist. Why is it that Nigerians prefer to make a living outside? Why is it that young Nigerians do not know this country the way they know the cities and major countries outside? I was telling somebody in another conversation yesterday that was a few days ago, that as a young man, I traveled a lot within Nigeria when I was growing up, partly because of my student activism. And when it was time to do my NYC, for example, I think Sokoto State and Borno State in the old 19-state structure, so were the only 2 states I hadn't been to. So I was praying fervently to get to serve in either of those states. And my colleagues didn't understand me. And eventually I got to serve in Maiduguri in Borno State, and I was elated. I wanted to understand the people, to know the people. Then after my service, 1 year later, when I finished service, I gathered my Ghana Must Go and took a vehicle from Maiduguri, traveled the stretch of road, went to Jigawa. From Jigawa, I went to Katsina, from Katsina to Zamfara, from Zamfara to Sokoto. Stayed 1 week in Sokoto, just moving around, knowing the people, understanding. I mean, some of these places, as a journalist and development worker, I would travel to those places many times more. But then as a young man in my mid-20s, I took that opportunity. When I spent 1 week in Sokoto, I traveled back from Sokoto, took a bus, went to Kebbi, went to Niger, from Niger went to Kwara, from Kwara went to Lagos. And I could beat my chest and say, look, I've traveled to every nook and cranny of this country. I understand a bit of these people. I know Nobody can venture into that kind of thing, partly because you don't have the resource, partly because it's dangerous, partly, and so for so many reasons. How do you have a country that you can't even move to the next? So do we have a nation? Do we have a country? People travel. For those of you outside, you can decide to pack your loads tomorrow from New York and go to California. You are a fucking black man, pardon my language, from a third world shithole country in Africa. You made a life for yourself in New York. You can decide to leave New York tomorrow and go to California and run for the governor of state of California. Nobody will challenge you. They will challenge you based on your records, whether if you have been in parliament, your voting records, and so on. So these are the kind of social revolution to even have a modern society. If you are in the National Assembly, for example, you are able to vote instead of who will support Rudolph. The ayes have it, bah. The nays have it, bah. Nobody, no record, nobody knows what is happening. We just, mangle everything and move on to the next thing. So when you talk about America and talk about people in their 80s and 90s still writing, there are certain basic things that are taken for granted. Light is taken for granted. Water is taken. Maybe you have to deal with the issue of a madman as a president. That's at the higher level. But certain basic things, nobody stops you from traveling. Nothing stops you from waking up now after this show and say you want to take a road trip to New Jersey, and from New Jersey you go to Canada or something. It's not going here. I live in Abuja here. My office is just down the road. To move out of this place to go to my office, sometimes it's a problem. How many people, friends, have died just they've been hit by cars because they went for a stroll, jogging? So you can't even jog to keep fit in your own community. That calls for a social revolution. We need to fix certain things. We need to understand why is it that people, you live in a society where you're born, you pay your taxes, you can't run for election, you can't get the social benefit. You live in a country where, even though you are from Zamfara State, supposedly, but you were born in Lagos State, you went to the best primary and secondary school in Lagos State. When they are going to judge you for JAM, they are going to judge you based on 10 marks over 400 because you are from Zamfara State. How does that play out? What does it mean for young people growing up? You have somebody from Imo State, another person from Zamfara State. They were born in Lagos. They went to the same primary school and secondary school. When they are going to be judged by JAM, this person who hasn't been to Imo State before is judged, given a mark cutoff point of 300, and you from Zamfara State. And it's even possible that the person from Zamfara State may have scored more than the person who has scored 350 in JAM, but his cutoff mark is 10. Because so these are some of the points that we need to debate, conversation, and this is at the level of that structural change, social revolution. Then we can get into the deeper economic revolution in terms of how do we restructuring not just the structure of the country, but also issues around the economy, wealth distribution, ownership, and so on. A country where individuals will wake up and own oil block, and then they can do whatever, they can decide to sell it off and become some of the generals in the army as one of the richest people in the world today. In a society where you are in the military, you may need to change your name or religion to fit in, and so there is a lot wrong with us as a people, and it's not just about politics. We haven't really started.
Now, Chido,
need to do a lot of talking, and sometimes it baffles me when I hear people say, yes.
I wanted to say that. Finish your thoughts. When you hear people say,
no, I'm just saying that Yeah, when I hear people say, "Oh, we talk too much about Nigeria," I'm like, we haven't started talking. No, but very few people have been able to, present the problem. I mean, you are in the US, you go back and you read the Federalist paper and you read the conversation that went on about sharing of power between the center and the states. And where can you find that kind of conversation in Nigeria? It was a conscious decision that people like you rigorous conversation that went on and you explore. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. Maybe in 100 years, because say for example now technology has come on and things will change. But at least there was this conversation and you agree that okay, we have this society, we have a country of 200 uh, over 200 ethnic groups and so on. How do we ensure that people belong? How do we maintain law and order? So you look at there is a lot of comparison between the Canadian society and Nigeria, not society as in like daily living, but the structure of the country. So Canada, I think 3 or 4 of the provinces that were colonized by the British came together to form the Confederacy. One of the things the earliest leaders of Canada did was to say this country is too big for us to manage it. We need to connect. So they brought China. It's a big problem in Canada today, but they brought in Chinese indentured workers from China to build railways as big as Canada is. And I hear people say, "Oh, Nigeria is too big as a country." And I'm looking at, we are not even number 7 or number 8 in Africa in terms of size. Sudan is bigger than us. Libya is bigger than us. Congo is bigger than South Africa. Is bigger than us, and so on. Canada is 10 times the physical size of Nigeria. Canada is almost like from Cameroon to Mauritania, the whole of West Africa, a sub-region. But there are railroads connection from every major city. You can travel from 10,000 kilometers from the northwest of Canada in Vancouver, almost 7 hours flight to the place. That way, people are able to. The train tracks that were built by the colonialists to carry produce, they are no longer in existence. They've been abandoned by the political class. So if you don't have cars to travel in some of these dangerous roads, you can't move around. You have a society where even as young people, there were students who were going to school through rail in federal government colleges. Maybe they were from Sokoto, they were in federal government college or where they would travel by road. Those things don't exist anymore. How, that's the challenge. How do we develop and build a modern nation state? Before then, we can begin to talk about some of this or that thing, the politics and so on of it.
All right. We have to take a break. Let me say this. I have more questions, but I think I'll suspend them because there are people who want to interact with you. I don't want it to be just two of us. You worked at the EFCC as coordinator of crime prevention unit. That was in 2006 to 2008. You also have been in the media. So I have a question about how the EFCC, your own view of how the EFCC, they've evolved and how they are doing now. And in the case of the media, you've been in the media space for a long time. You have your organization, African Center for Media and Information Literacy. The media is a mess, not just in Nigeria, all over the world. And I think we need to hear your insights. What are you saying to young media executives or people who are practicing in the media? Because our people here tend to they give a lot of pressure on the media people. Maybe you can talk on that, but that will be when we come back. But before we go, there is this question that everybody's waiting for you to answer, which is, where have you been for the last 4 years? Maybe all you said today have given an idea, but for those who want specific answer, what do you say to them? Where have you been?
Yeah, so I've been in Nigeria for the most part, but I've also been in other places. So I've done a lot of travels. That's the interesting thing. Even when I say I'm in Nigeria, I'm not in Nigeria. I wake up tomorrow, I'm in South Africa for a few weeks. I'm somewhere, I'm either teaching or doing some work or or some. So I've just been all over the place, and that also explains why I've not been regular here. My time, I've not been in control of my time. I find myself, I'm here today because I feel obligated to be here today. I would ordinarily, there has been so much building building an organization or different organizations. So I run, at least in the last 4 years that I've been away from the show. I spend a bit more time in Nigeria, but I'm also all over the place. So I'm the co-publisher of Ikenga Online. I'm the coordinator of this massive digitalization project in Calabar, the Socialist Library and Archives, where we have over 10,000 books and counting on massive newspaper collection. I was in Calabar last month. I'll be back in Calabar next month. I set up, apart from my normal organization that I run, the African Center for Media and Information Literacy, I've also set up the Media and Information Literacy and Intercultural Dialogue Foundation. So without sounding immodest, I would say I'm a man of many activities or many paths, and feeling all of this is quite overwhelming. You just wake up and find that you have too many things to contend with. There's something else I'm forgetting. So there is Ikenga, there is Millet, there is Solar, there is Africmail. I've just been elected the coordinator of the network of book clubs and reading culture promoters in Nigeria. I'm fascinated by books. I served for 2 years as the vice coordinator of that group. Just last month, I was elected the coordinator. So I was involved in the process of UNESCO designating a center at the Open University, the first of its kind in the world, the International Media and Information Literacy Institute in Abuja. We worked for close to 2 years to make that happen, writing the feasibility study, doing all the groundwork, and so on. Of course, then you also have to deal with family and all of that. It's overwhelming. And then for me, the major thing in all of this is the book. I traveled. I was away in Mauritius 2 or 3 years ago, hoping to spend some time to finish the book. I did a lot of work, but unfortunately, I couldn't finish. I'm back here. I think I stopped working on that book since October because the pressure. I'm hoping I'll go back to it as soon as possible. The idea was for the book to come out as part of my 60th birthday celebration, but it didn't happen. It's that you can only do so much. I started by explaining the conditions and the distractions in Nigeria, the daily grind, and earning a living and living for so many people. It's challenging, but what can you do? You only rest the day you die.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we continue the conversation. Our people in the studio will join us and welcome you back to 90 Minutes Africa. Thank you, Chido.
are not told in a day. They are built over time. Years of thoughts, of writing, years of asking difficult questions. A voice that has stayed consistent in a country that is constantly evolving. And in moments like this, you don't try to create something new, you know? You respect what already exists. Because it's about identity, legacy, presence, and every frame is part of something bigger. A conversation, a gathering, a moment that brings people together. That was only the beginning. Next, we document the moment itself.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Chido, one of our friends said you've left us after watching the symposium and everything that was part of your 60th birthday. He just said you left us. So welcome back. We have Chido Onumah, who in 2022 was one of the people that I sat down with, and we came up with this. It was this idea to call it 90 Minutes Africa, not my idea. I brought out my names and he threw it away, the names I suggested, and we adopted his son. So it's 90 Minutes Africa. Welcome back to the show. All right. So we have a lot of things have changed since the last time you were here. Now we have people who actually, there's somebody here who wants your job. So many so many things have changed. But let's start. Let me they call on them and they will get a chance to interact with you, and then we'll get back to. We also ask you some questions. Mr. James, let's start with you.
Hello. Can you hear me, please?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm sorry, my background here is very noisy. I have no control over them. There are some happy students having good time. Kindly pardon me.
Where is that?
Oh, my place of work. My students are having good times.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. Some time ago, some of my students asked me, why are you an atheist? Why do you not believe in God? I told them that the road to heaven is very long and very tedious. I know I cannot make it, so I've given up. That was my response to the students. The issue is that the problems of Nigeria cannot be solved. The country is beyond redemption. It's true that no matter how difficult a problem is, if reasonable men sit down to find a common ground, the problem can be solved. But if we consider what the South Africans went through from 1912, when the ANC was formed, till 1994, when they gained their independence, the experiences they were subjected to is not only horrible, but it's unquantifiable. Do we have to go through such a horrible situation just because we want the country to be together? I don't think it's necessary. The problem we are solving right now is created by Britain. They created the same problem in Palestine. That is the war they are fighting today in Iran. Cameroon has the same problem created by Britain. Pakistan and India have the same problem created by Britain. We have the same problem created by Britain. Even in Ghana, they have a problem with Togo, the same Britain. So this is a deliberate attempt created by Britain to keep the colonial territory to be subject to their whims and caprices. We are fighting a lost battle. The earlier we pack up the country, in my opinion, the better. We should be thinking, expending our energies on creating post-Nigerian republics. How will the republics look like? The leaders of thought of the different ethnic groups should be putting their heads together in order to avert the situation Southern Sudan ran into. So this is my opinion. It's an exercise in futility to attempt to solve the problems of Nigeria. Thank you very much for your effort, and thank you for coming. Do you by chance know my colleague with Martin Nobu, a mathematician?
You said, do I by chance know him?
Yes, Edwin Madunagu. He was a fine writer. I used to read his
It's my father.
Oh, the child of an elephant cannot be a dwarf. I see. You are the son of Edwin Madunagu.
Yes.
The mathematician.
Yes.
Yes. The
Rudolph will explain more to you. Rudolph is he's the uncle to Rudolph, so Rudolph will explain the rest to you.
Okay. The child of an elephant truly cannot be a dwarf. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. And I'll go back to Edwin Madunagu in answering your question.
Okay, I will write you a letter. Expect a letter from me.
I would. Do I answer that question or do I wait for others?
Go ahead. Say whatever you wish to say.
Yeah, answer, because we don't have a lot of people. So answer and then we go to the next.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. James. I think you raised an issue that a lot of people share. Many people share your view, understandably so. I think anybody who has lived in this country for even 10 years as a citizen of this country will really feel, outraged at what is going on and how the country has turned, not to talk of those who have lived all their life. And it's so, when you look at the good old days, as a young man, you could walk in Lagos, you could walk into any department store, either Kingsway or Leventis, and to just walk to the supervisor or manager to say you're looking for a holiday job. And you get it. You are a kid of 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, and so on. So it's quite agonizing to see how we frittered away the potential that this country has. I agree with you that the British should be held responsible in the main for much, if not of all of the problems you've enumerated. We know the problem everywhere they went to. We know the problem they created in the Indian subcontinent and so on. It's still lingering up until today in Kenya, in Ghana, everywhere they went to. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. That's the nature of colonialism. But then you can also ask yourself how well somebody like you understand this thing, the ruling class, the elite that have led us since independence. Is it that they don't understand this and then know that we need to do better? How do we extricate ourselves from this mess that the British handed over to us? And that was the import of the conversation we had during the birthday symposium. I was saying it's the challenge of Nigeria, the challenge of 1914, what people call forced marriage. And I'll go back and answer and say, look, nations come into being and go out of being. There is no specific way in which each nation comes to being. Nations come to being through war, through conquest, through amalgamation, I spoke about Canada, for example. Canada is, a country many Nigerians want to go run to and live and so on. If you look at the historical evolution of Canada, it's no different from Nigeria. Just as you had 3-4 regions that were colonized by the British, that was exactly what happened in Canada by 1867 when the British left, and these 4 provinces came together and formed the Confederation of Canada and began to expand and acquire land. So these 4 regions were in the Toronto, what you know as the Toronto area today, and they began to expand up until the the Pacific Ocean, that today Canada is the second largest nation in the world after Russia. You need about 1 week of travel from coast to coast, from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. So we missed it. Yes, the British brought us together and the keynote speaker during the symposium in Abuja on last Friday highlighted and emphasized that the British brought us together basically for pecuniary reasons, and they manipulated everything from census to election to politics to suit their whims and caprices and all of that. And unfortunately, the quality of leadership we had at independence did not know how to create Nigerians out of the new nation that the British handed over to us. And fast forward to 2026, we are in the mess we are today. But for me, the solution doesn't lie, because it's a difficult solution. So you look at a state like, say, what's it called, Somalia, how close-knit the Somali society is in terms of religion and culture. Yet they are still fragmented and fractured, fighting. You have warlords and communities, not to talk of a state like Nigeria. And I started this conversation by noting that at independence, just like it happened in India, where in 1947, India gained independence, Pakistan came out of that, subsequently Bangladesh in 1973. We could have been 3 nations or even 4 at independence. Maybe that would have solved a lot of problems. But we didn't. We moved on to independence, agreed that we're going to run a federal republic, and then the military coup of 1966, January 15, happened and destroyed everything. And since then, we've been scrambling to refederalize, to organize our society on the Verdi foundation. There is nothing peculiar about Nigeria's development. A lot of the countries around the world, whether you look at Southeast Asia or South America, where the military also, places like Chile, where you had Pinochet and others, what military rule did, and that's to tell you that the military should be held responsible for as much as we want to hold our politicians responsible, we need to hold the military class responsible for the mess we are in today. So in 1966, when the coup happened and then the military took over and changed the configuration of the country from a federal republic to a unitary state with command and control at the center, they not only destroyed the configuration, the structural makeup of the country, they went beyond that. So unlike other places around the world where the military took over, what you could accuse them of human rights abuses, of corruption, of mismanagement, of bad leadership, and so on. But they didn't change the structure of this country. So by the time the military left, if they didn't change the foundation on which this country was built, we would have picked on and continued to live our lives, so that today we won't be talking, oh, do we go back to federal regionalism, or should we use the current geopolitical zones to calibrate the country, and so on. The point I want to make is that it's unfortunate, but that's the reality. No matter how much we fantasize about breaking up Nigeria, it's going to be one of the most difficult, if not impossible, thing to do. Because Nigeria has evolved since 1960. There are Nigerians now, people who do not have affiliation to any particular religion, ethnicity, or group, who have mixed. And when I talked about going back to my ideological father, Edwin Madunagu, and in answering this question, and I talked to Rudolph much earlier in this program on why, when you say people have stopped writing, I say there's nothing new to write about. Everything that is happening now has been analyzed in the past. We only need to go back to the past and see how it's the kind of bearing it has to the present. So Edwin Madunagu uses the wall analogy to try to help us understand Nigeria today vis-a-vis the way Nigeria was in 1960. You say, okay, when you build a wall, so you can describe Nigeria as a wall. In building a wall, you have to have water. You have to have concrete, cement, sand, and everything. The water, the cement, and sand all make up the different configurations of the Nigerian society. and you put it together, it becomes the plaster the thing you need in building a wall. You would agree with me that when that wall collapses, you can never get those ingredients you used in building that wall in their original state. You can't get the water from it. You can't get the sand from it. You can't get the cement from it. You can't get the concrete from it. That's where Nigeria is now. Nigeria has mixed so much. So for some of those who talk about Biafra, for example, or who play identity politics, some people will tell you the Igbos are not just in the southeast; they are in Benue, they are in this place, they are in Delta, they are in Edo State, they are in all those places. How do you even begin to carve out? You look at the Yorubas, you look at the Ijaws. There are Ijaws in the main area of the Ijaw, Bayelsa, Delta, Port Rivers. There is a Ijaw in somebody like Showore. Showore is Ijaw. But he's from Rudolph. Remind me, what's his state? Is it Ekiti or
Ondo State?
Ondo State. So, how do you create an Ijaw nation out of Nigeria when you have Ijaws in 7, 8, 9, 10 societies? You look at the Fulanis. There are Fulanis stretching from Sokoto to Adamawa. How do you build a Fulani? Is it a Fulani nation you want to be? So, for me, I'm open to ideas and creative ways of finding answer to the Nigerian conundrum. But let's not look for quick fixes and think that, oh, we want to just break up the country and carve it out. Who would even do the carving? How are you going to carve? And if you say the country will just break, and it will break, and Somalia will be a child's play. Nigeria will become the poster child of, the worst possible scenario in terms of a nation breaking up. But we do not want to have that conversation so that we can arrive at a common formula that is acceptable, if not acceptable to everybody, at least to majority of Nigerians.
All right, thank you, Chido. Thank you, James.
My darling Ovie, is that you?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Your dreads are no longer.
And that's how long I've been waiting to take your job.
So Ovie is the one that has been interested in your job. He said you should be declared fired, and we announced that he's coming in. But he called and asked for special privileges, that he has 3 questions for you. I thought there would be a lot of people that he will be able to ask the 3 questions. So Ovie, I'll give you maybe
those days we had the time limit for this show. Does it still?
One of the things we didn't talk about it behind the scene, but on our 5th anniversary we do that. Chido was of the opinion that it should be 90 minutes. At 90 minutes we close shop and go home. So when he went on vacation, we stretched it to 3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you didn't tell me. I haven't had dinner.
Okay, you will soon have dinner. Don't worry. We have only 6 people. Ovie, go ahead.
Thank you, the real doctor. No, the fake one for for your time. To be honest, after spending a couple of weeks diving into your work, I got intimidated. So I decided to suspend taking loan to buy suits for this auditioning. I want to be sure if I'll get it first before I'll take that risk. So let me start with the quote from your book, Nigeria is Inevitable. It said, the problem with Nigeria is not just leadership. It is the very structure of the country that make bad leadership inevitable. Nigeria is not negotiable. As provocative and influential the collection of essays that book is, I am more in line with your school of thought, not because it pushes back on the political mantra in Nigeria that says the unity of Nigeria is non-negotiable. It also serves as a cautionary tool in the hands of the citizen. The central thesis is that for the Nigerian to survive and strive, its citizens must be allowed to discuss, debate, and redefine the terms of our union. You said for this to happen, a formal gathering of ethnic nationalities and stakeholders will have to gather in form of sovereign national conference to produce a truly people's constitution and address the Nigerian question. You provided a middle ground between total disintegration and the rigid, often oppressive status quo of today by saying physical federalism, where states will have more control over their resources and security. State police, as you alluded to, is the answer. First question here is, what do you say to the winning argument right now, which is regionalism, and they are, pushing for that, going by the constitutional conversation that is going on at the National Assembly. So I usually stand on the state, the dichotomy, having more power, or you are actually losing ground to the regional conversation. Another one is that we are all Biafran. Is another body of work of yours, another book, perhaps the most controversial one, even though it's not a book about secessionist movement in a real literal sense. Rather, you use Biafra as a metaphor for systematic marginalization and structural failure experienced by almost every Nigerian, regardless of their ethnicity or religion. The central premise is that the grievances that led to the Biafran War, inequality, injustice, and broken federal structure have now become a national reality of the average Nigerian. Those are facts. So the question go with that is, with what has happened since 2023, Tinubu taking power with the Muslim ticket, the narrative of Christian genocide gaining worldwide attention, and Trump responding, by bombing terrorists in Sokoto on behalf of Nigerian Christians. Do you still believe that we are all Biafrans? Now, on the professional level, professionalism versus professional circumstances, you, as a sharp critic of brown envelope journalism, bribery in the press, you advocated for economic independence for media. You argue that for the media to be true fourth estate of democracy, it must be economically viable and independent of state patronage. The elephant in the room here is the classic tension in political activism and journalism, the gap between theoretical idea and operational reality, where a vocal critic like you, an advocate for media independence like you, is now associated or working for an organization funded by a foreign state like Qatar. It creates a complex credibility paradox. And the last one here is short. Dr. Dameji wrote a book, A Case That Never Was, literally romanticizing a Biafra. And I'm also a Nigerian that you can only fantasize. And I would say to some extent is right, or who is right, or who could be right, going by your body of work. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that's a hand and mouthful. Thank you so much for that. I think you actually qualify to take over my job. If I don't show up in the next 5 years, please, please take over the job. The third question wasn't really clear. You were talking about working for a Qatar.
Yeah, you. I think the organization that you are building today, currently in Nigeria, which is pretty much larger Africa, is pretty much in a sponsorship deal or agreement with WISE. WISE is pretty much 100% funded by Qatari agency. If I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but that's where my research took me.
Okay, well, I don't know how or where your research took you. I run an organization, the African Center for Media and Information. Is a non-governmental organization. We work around empowering young people and civil society with media and information literacy skills. And we get, just like many many organizations, civil society organizations, we receive our funding from Rudolph's America foundations like Ford Foundation and MacArthur Foundation. It's not Qatari, but again, it's also a case of between the devil and the deep blue sea. And I think this is the issue I raised in my PhD work, where I did an extensive research about the survival of media in the new digital media age. How do newspapers survive? And traveled around Nigeria, traveled extensively in South Africa, comparing newspapers and their future and survival. And one of the things that came out of that research, again, is it goes in line with the fantastic book about media viability, Saving the Media by the French scholar. I don't remember her name now. Foundation using grants. You can also get money from government, but then it doesn't mean so. Like you are in the US, I assume maybe National Public Radio, for example, they get grant from the federal government in the US, but it doesn't mean it's an independent. So it's like taxpayers' money being used to help independent media to survive. I think that there is no way that the media can survive if it's dependent on government patronage. It's not, then it will be at the beck and call of whoever is in power. Even when that is not happening, and you can see how the abusive relationship between the Trump administration and independent media in the United States. So just to quickly answer that question, yeah, it's going to be hard these days with what is happening. Though before now, before the advent of new media technology, newspapers could survive by selling hard copies, by advertising, and so on. But a lot of people these days read their newspapers on their phone, tablets, and computers, and so on. So newspapers have to be creative, think outside the box, from foundation support to government support. I think the Nigerian Guild of Editors in here are also thinking about that the government, just as the government sets up certain amount of money to fund universities, to fund the media, is like the only profession that is enshrined in the Constitution, that is recognized in the Constitution. So perhaps it's time the government looked into finding a way to get some money out for independent media organization. The details will be quite tricky, who and who, in our country and society. Once you say there is 1 billion naira to be spent, it's also the government people that will set up their own media, quickly set up their own media houses to get that money. But I believe in the independence of the media, and much of that independence has to do with finances, and we need to start thinking of creative ways to build that financial base, whether through government support but not direct government support. So you can have a media commission that the government sets aside certain money for. You don't know who gets the money, so you don't expect anything from them. They will report and do their job diligently. But you also get support from foreign foundations, and you are not obligated in any way, shape, or form to stay beholden to those foundations. But then let's go back to the two questions you asked. I think the fourth one, maybe I'll leave that to Rudolph to answer. The first one, regionalism. I don't think regionalism is going to work, so let's bury the idea. Just as I said about Nigeria breaking up into, and I have no illusions about it. It's possible for the country to break up. Countries are organic entities or structures. They come into being and they die. They go out of being. They can die. So Nigeria can break up. Let's not romanticize that. But breaking up is one thing, and then breaking up in the Humpty Dumpty fashion, it's a completely different thing. So you don't think you can break up and pick the pieces together again is going to be almost it's going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to do. And I tried to explain this in answering the question by Mr. James. So what we need to do, basically, the structures are all laid out. Again, I go back to the crisis of 1966. The first civil war, the first military coup of January 15, 19, when the military took over, what they did not only take over, they reconstructed Nigeria in their own military image by destroying the federal structure on which the country was built and converted into a unitary structure. The states that we have today are successor entities of the original federal structure. So if you look at, you say, the Eastern region, the states that the military eventually created out of, and everything was done just so. Gowon quickly created 12 states on the eve of the Civil War, May 27, 1967. Gowon created 12 states. I think they were conscious enough to create 12 states in the north and 6 states rather in the north and 6 states in the south, so that they could have that balancing going into the Civil War. The next state creation was done in February, a week before Murtala was assassinated on February 13, 1976. And from my own research and reading, I understand that the idea was to create, what's it called? 20 states, to have 10 states in the north and 10 states to continue that balancing. But the military hegemony decided to do otherwise. So they had 19 states, 10 in the north, 9 in the south. Fast forward to 1987, when Babangida created additional states, I think Akwa Ibom and Katsina states in 1987. The idea, the suggestion, which came out from the works of the likes of Edwin Madunagu, who was a member of the political bureau that Babangida created in 1986 before he was sacked for, according to them, not doing the bidding of the committee. What they recommended was that they should only create Akwa Ibom state to balance. So part of the challenge of the Nigerian society today is also ethnic structural balancing and all of that. I talked about the fact that the Nigeria's peculiarity is the fact that we are perhaps the only country in the world where you have both major religion, Christianity and Islam, at par. If we know of any other country, we can debate it here. Nigeria is the only country in the world where you have 3 major ethnic groups. Most places you have 1, at most 2, but in Nigeria you have 3. So we could simply have devolved into 3 societies or 3 nations or 3 countries at independence or subsequently after independence. So when the military, what they did by destroying the federal structure and creating the state, as bad as that was, it could still have been salvaged because the states today are the successor entities of the region. So when you say Imo State, Abia State, Anambra State, Enugu State, and so on, they were part of the original regional structure that were created in 1946 when the whole regionalism thing took effect. But then you now understand again the exceptionalism of Nigeria that Ali Mazuri talks about. That same eastern region also contains minorities. So you have part of that eastern region includes Akwa Ibom, includes Rivers, includes Bayelsa, and so on, just as the western region includes Edo and Delta State. Do you want to go back? How do you structure a region now that incorporates all these people? What we can do is to leave the states the way they are. there is something very wrong and obnoxious about the Nigerian Federation. And if you look at the 20 or so countries around the world that practice federalism, whether it's the United States, Canada, India, Spain, which other country, I think Switzerland, and so on. It's for us to devise the most creative ways that works for us. If you look at a nation like South Africa here, South Africa has 3 capitals. The political capital of South Africa, where the president lives, is in Pretoria. The legislative capital is in this place where you have Robben Island. What's this?
Is it Joburg?
No, not Joburg. The Cape Town.
Cape Town.
Cape Town in the southern part of. So that's where that's the legislative capital, and then the judicial capital, the Supreme Court, is located in the northern mid-west region of the thing. Why did they do that? To build unity and cohesion. You have other countries in Switzerland, for example. There is really no capital in that sense, but you have, so just like in South Africa, you have Bern as like the political capital. You have this. Every country comes to redemption in its own way. We haven't sought our way to redemption. We're just, wobbling. What was it that one of our coaches said about the footballers when they criticize him? He say, "We'll wumble and fumble."
Yeah, wumble and fumble to victory.
Yeah, we're just wumbling and fumbling to nationhood or nation building. So for me, and this kind of addresses the question of state police. Yes, I think the states can exist independently the way we can then have geopolitical zones in terms of like access or defining certain national or social needs of the country or for ease of administration. For starters, we can work them based on, say, okay, these states, how is it even possible that in a country like Nigeria, with its diversity and everything, the North Central, again, going back to the horrible role that the military played in our psyche as a people, the North Central's geopolitical zone has 7 states. All the others have 6 states. And then the Southeast has 5. Some people will point to say, oh, the size of the region. But it doesn't matter whether Niger State is bigger than the whole of the Southeast together. In 1946, when we agreed to be part of a federal system, we came to it as equal partners. And we have to be treated as equals. If you don't want to treat me as equal, then go your way, I go my way. So there is no recommendation to say, because this side has a larger land mass. No, we didn't come into this union because of our land mass. We didn't take decision of being a one nation because of our land mass. We took the decision consciously as a people that we've been brought together by the colonialists, and we think we can work together going forward. So no matter how big or how small each region or group is, they deserve that same treatment. So the Southeast has been, agitating for an additional state and so on. For me, the point then is that the states are the successor entity of the original configuration of this country in 1946 going forward to 1960 when we gained independence, and even up until 1963 when we had a republic, an additional Midwest region was created. Can we then give the states those powers? So the states can have their constitution, the states can have their flags. These are not states these are not ethnic or religious states. These are political states. So when you say state, that geopolitical landmass, Imo State, Lagos State. So anybody who lives there, it's a modern nation state. Anybody who lives in Lagos is a Nigerian. And I've written about this. For example, I remember many years ago when Fashola, a lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, said he was deporting. I took him on, like he was deporting beggars to their home states. Like, how do you qualify? You are a Nigerian, the constitution allows you freedom of movement. You can live and exist in any place you want. And you tell me I'm causing nuisance in Lagos and I'm not from Lagos State. How do you define? I'm a Nigerian and I have the right to stay in Lagos. So those states are not ethnic, they are not religious states. They are modern states. Every Nigerian can live in anywhere they find themselves. Those states would have their police, they will have their own structure, they have whatever works for them. All of that within the context of a nation called Nigeria. So Nigeria, the center will continue to control things around foreign policy, immigration, and currency, and a few things, so that the states can become viable and competitive. As long as you move to that state, you pay your tax and do what the state assembly make laws for the good governance of the states. That's my own sense, and it's doable if we really want to have that conversation. We begin to talk about separation of power, the rights of states, the power of the center. Enough conversation about this thing. So there is really no need, because no two states can even agree, because the way the military destroyed the structure of this country. There are people, you say today, Imo State, oh, we are supposed to be in Anambra State, or in Benue State, we are supposed to be in Plateau State, or say a state like Kaduna. There are people are asking for their own states because they don't want to be part of a larger Kaduna State, or so on. All of these are things that the military did. They created local governments, gave their mistresses, concubines, and friends, created local governments for them. Nigeria, again, you go back to Nigeria's exceptionalism. Nigeria is the only country in the world that practices federalism, where you have local governments created by the national government and enshrined in the constitution. In all the federal states I know of and that I've researched, there are only two structures. So in the United States, you have the federal and states. These are the federating units. In Canada, you have the national or federal and the provinces. In Spain, you have the national and the regions, and so on. You come to Nigeria, you have the national, you have the state, and then you have the local government. The states, the local government are things that the states should deal with. So you have a situation where Lagos State, that has over 20 million people, the federal government creates only 20 local governments in Lagos. Kano State has fewer people than Lagos. There are 44 local governments in Kano. Jigawa State was created and carved out of Kano State. There are 20 local governments in Jigawa. So if you add 20 to 44, that's, if my math is right, that's 64 local governments. And if you add the population of Kano and Jigawa, most likely there are fewer people in those two states than Lagos. And Lagos has 20 local governments. So you begin to understand the whole theory. What's the Italian philosopher and Marxist, Gramsci's whole idea of internal colonialism. This is deliberate because sharing the allocation of the country will be based on local government. So you give Kano multiple times more money than you give Lagos with more people and so on. All of these have to stop within a restructured and reconstituted federal republic. So the states would exist as semi-independent entities, not on a religious or ethnic or any other than political and geographical reasons. So that's my sense. And then you quickly to the question about we are all Biafra, do we still be? Yeah, of course we are. With all the issues, people are talking about marginalization everywhere you go. Incidentally, even in some of the places, you raise the question of internal colonialism, where the hegemonic power bloc in Nigeria, which essentially has been the northern, both political and military, the country. But even when you go to places like Kebbi, Zamfara, and see how poverty-ridden Nigerians are, then you begin to understand the tragedy of the Nigerian elite and why we are all Biafran. I think we need to begin to reconstruct Nigeria in the image of Nigeria as the true owner of this republic. Everywhere you go, the fact that certain people are in power hasn't benefited people from that particular thing, and it will never benefit them unless we restructure in such a way that people, the money that should go to Nigerians gets to them. So I have a friend who works in the local government system. We call him allocation. And this is not my choice of word, it's his, because he tells us this still that anytime, is it once a month? I don't remember now, once a month or once every quarter, when the allocation comes, they come to Abuja to share it. And by the time they go back to their local government, maybe half of the money is gone. They are paying godfathers off. They are paying even people who are giving them their allocation. Money that should just come directly, to the states, and the states will manage their affairs the way they want to. But it's what it is. We have a responsibility to deal with that challenge. I hope, Ovie, I've been able to address some of the concerns you have. The last question, maybe I'll leave that for Rudolph to discuss. Rudolph is the true Biafran, and I think he's more than that topic.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, I am satisfied.
Thank you, Chido. So today we are focusing on Chido, so I don't want to take the shine off him, but just what I want to say is that poetry is open to anybody's interpretation. The version of the book, the Nigerian edition, is not yet published. I'm talking to the publishers. They are not giving me the right to give any Nigerian publisher to publish it. So Chido is yet to read the book. But in general, the idea about the book is really about longing and whatever you are desiring. If you don't get it, how do you deal with that? And that's just it. So, all right, let's move on to... thank you. I'll get you a copy when you come to the US. If I find somebody going home, I'll give you a copy. KJ, you're next. Please, let's limit it now to one. I made a special case for
now, you see, eh? Now, only when I hunt, I go bush to go hunt. I'm all animal go plant tree, including tot. Eh?
No, not so. I even had to. Somebody lent me their laptop because Rudolph put some virus in mine. So, and the person is demanding it.
Oh, they want their
laptop giving
back.
me till 9 o'clock, which is 10 minutes time because they have their thesis to write.
Oh no, you can't do that. We have to take all the people that are in. We won't let new people come in. So quickly, just one question each so that we can.
Yeah. Okay. So, Doctor, thank you so much. In fact, you have answered almost every other question that is bugging. The only other one I have others, but I will just jump to this. This is a bit different from every other one. You are part of the media, and the conversations we've been having with you so far seem not to find its way to the Nigerian media. Rather, what we do in the media is to invite the same players who are the adjutant of the evil that is going on in Nigeria and keep recycling these people, even though the media knows that some of those information they bring to the media and constantly being aired over Nigerian space is a lie. why is the media now becoming a part and parcel of those who are not only perpetuating this war in power, but also helping to tell their story over and over again? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy you raised this issue. Well, the short and simple answer to your question is that the media is a reflection of the Nigerian society. It's like saying, even though we like to, again, understandably so, the Constitution has given us, when I say us, I mean the media, so much leverage by mentioning the media in the Constitution and explaining how important the media's role is in holding government to account, but also ensuring that society functions optimally. But how many independent media, and it goes back to the question of the asked, a lot of, maybe today, it's the same because of, just as our politics is, the same huge capital outlay you need to run a media house. First and foremost, media is business. So if you check some of the newspapers that are functioning, when I say functioning, they've managed to stay afloat. Somebody becomes a governor, runs for office, is elected a governor. In 4 years, he has stolen enough money to set up a media house because he thinks he needs the media to give him leverage for re-election and maybe to become a senator or ultimately run for president. So even the independent private media, so-called, are struggling. And because the Nigerian society is one that is controlled from the center, the state controls everything. It's almost like the beast. And for Rudolph, maybe as a Christian and Bible scholar, you can help me out here. Like, you have, what is that number? You in Nigeria, you have to have that mark, that number to be able to buy and sell. Yeah, like you have to have that number, whether you are a banker. The banking industry is in an incestuous relationship with the Nigerian state. Whether you are a businessman, you are a Dangote or a $3, if you read a $3 book and you explain how it's all about patronage, it's like everything. And again, it goes back to the whole question of the military, how the country has become so structured that everything you do is tied around the Nigerian state. And that explains why businessmen, traders, manufacturers, industrialists, bankers are all toeing to whoever is in power, no matter who, because you can't survive, whether it's about import license. Like, things are so abnormal here. A lot of the private television stations that exist today and are doing well, thanks to Babangida, his friends, so how he gave them licenses. You can't, as a media professional, you can't go through the normal process to get the license. You have to know one general in the army or in the military to be able to. That's how things function here. So you have a media landscape that is completely bereft of autonomy, that is completely lacking in independence financially, and so on. So what do you expect? Again, going back to what I said, many of the major media houses, television, radio, are owned by politicians, and they can only and they were set up basically not to inform Nigerians, not to empower Nigerians, but to support the political, economic, financial ambition of the people that set them up. That's the challenge we have. We do not have an industrial base in this country where you have, like, say, in Europe and America, where people, the railway industry, the mining industry, the oil industry, the power, even if they relate with the states, but they are independent to a great extent. But you don't have that independence, and that is reflected in the media. And then you add the benefit of the crisis of technology, how it has upended the whole our understanding and usage of media. Suddenly what we didn't plan for, from selling newspapers. And again, I go back to my uh, doctoral research. When I traveled extensively in South Africa about 10 years ago when I was finishing work on my PhD. And I found out that some newspapers were selling daily newspapers. And again, I wouldn't say it has anything to do with the level of media literacy or enlightenment in the country. Because growing up as a young man in Lagos, I used to buy 2, 3 newspapers every day from the pocket money that my parents provided me. As a young secondary school graduate, I still managed to. I was working and earning about 110 naira in 1983 as a monthly salary, and I could spend all of it on the Guardian newspaper, buy Time and Newsweek, later Newswatch, Newsbreed, West Africa, and everything. The average salary person in this country can afford to buy one, not to talk of 2 newspapers or magazines in a week. I was talking about South Africa. Then they were weekly papers were selling about anywhere between 150 and 200,000 copies, hard copies a day. Weekends, some of the Sunday papers were selling about 250,000 when you couldn't find any newspaper selling up to 20 or 50,000 in Nigeria. Because the economy had become so bad, it's would rather either we read online, even for those of us who are professional media people, we read online because it's convenient. And for those who can't read online, who must read the newspaper, they go to the newsstand and just pay a token and read the newspaper, or just look at the headlines and argue. So a lot of it has to do with the governance of the country, the economy, and so on. We can't really have an independent media when much of the media is tied to the apron string, financially and otherwise, to the party in power or the ruling elites. That would be my response.
Okay, thank you so much. Chris, we'll come to you. One question, please, so that we can get everybody and round up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me? Yes, okay.
Yes, I can.
Yes. Well, I have asked you a lot of questions on culture, but just let me ask you, what do you really think is the biggest problem in this nation building? The ignorance around ethnicity and nation or tribe, or the desire by certain nationality or ethnic nationality in trying to colonize, have internal colonization of others?
Okay, thank you very much. I think part of the challenge would be the question of internal colonization, in which case, which is to some extent the nature of humans. Like once you are in control, whether religion or culture wise, so you go to offices where the DG is a Yoruba person or Hausa or Igbo. The language of the DG becomes the lingua franca of that organization, and people speak it. And I try to I ensure that when I find myself in that institution, I do the otherwise, and just to rile people up and let them know that this is not acceptable. So yes, there is the big challenge of internal colonialism. There is the power block hegemony. So just as I talked about the country, the possibility of the country being three dominant, or we have 3 dominant ethnicity in the country. We could have been 3 three nations at independence. These three societies, no matter where you find them, even in institutions. So you look at somebody like Ken Saro-Wiwa or Isaac Adakaboro, who was one of the first, or perhaps really the first person in February of 1966, just 1 month after the first military coup in Nigeria, who pushed for the creation of a Niger Delta Republic and tried to carve out the Niger Delta because they felt they were subjugated by Nigeria, but more importantly, the dominant Igbo culture surrounding them. And they raised questions about how, when they were at the University of Nigeria and Nsukka, as minority students, they felt that sense of alienation and cultural dominance by the major ethnic group. So, how do you solve all of this problem? We feel that sense in places like in Kaduna, we feel it in places like Jos, and it explains some of the crises, the killings that we are experiencing in a lot of these places. That oneness, that so again, it goes back to the mistake our leaders, or the lack of interest or efforts our leaders in 1960 when we gained independence. Did we want to be one nation, no matter our cultural differences? How could we have built a common language? And we know the power of culture and language. So talking about language, I'll just tell a little story here. Maybe that can illustrate the point. So many years ago, I stopped over in London. I have a friend there who is a professor of law in one of the universities, but originally from Ghana. And we were just generally talking. I think it was around the time that ASU was on strike, and the then Minister of Education is one of these former governors of Ebonyi State. I don't remember his name now, but I know he was the governor of Ebonyi State. He was the Minister of Education then, and so we were watching AIT on this guy's television in his living room in London, and they were celebrating. ASU was on strike. Students had been on strike for many months. So he was celebrating 50 years, his 50th birthday and 25 years wedding anniversary. And my Ghanaian friend was aghast. I'm like, what kind of society do you have where ASU is on strike? Students are at home. The Minister of Education is busy celebrating his 50th birthday and 25th wedding anniversary. And universities, polytechnic, all federal institutions took out adverts in newspapers and on radio congratulating the minister. So there is a sense in which we have personalized government offices. It's all about patronage. So if you are a minister, your people know that it's your turn, it's our turn to eat. A younger cousin of mine, for example, told me, "Oh, why haven't you? We are praying for you to be a minister. You know, when you become a minister, I don't mind being your driver. We'll all move to Abuja." You know, like this is a young guy, barely literate, and he said, "Oh, that you know, being like a minister in Nigeria is like climbing an Iroko tree. Like you don't climb it twice. So whatever you can gather from." So everybody, we see Nigeria like it's a common grazing field. We are not interested in how to, because that's the culture that works. That's the culture that operates. So going back to my friend, he now told me that this your country is bizarre. Like, do you know what happened? I said, oh, I visited Nigeria many years ago, and I was at the airport in Lagos. It was so hot, steamy hot. You know, I didn't know what to do. I stopped. So I was on the queue waiting to be attended to. He's a Muslim chap from northern Ghana, so he bears an Arabic name. And then he saw an immigration officer who also has a name like Muslim Arabic name, and he called to the person, and the guy came to him, spoke Hausa to him, took him out of the line and took him to the front to attend to him. And he quickly attended to him. The guy, he asked me this question: what kind of society or country is yours that you treat foreigners better than your own citizens? The person that helped him probably didn't know he was a foreigner. He just because he spoke his language or he related with his name. So why haven't we thought of the idea of having a common language, something that, what are the objects of our love? What's the bishop, I'm forgetting this guy who talked about, tried to define what a nation is, that it's a group of people that have a common object. The Bishop of Hippo, when you ask that what is our common object of, the common objects of our love in Nigeria as a people, what is that single thing that unifies us as a people? You barely can. People would say, oh, football. I mean, football is nothing. What is that thing? And if we answer that question, perhaps it can help us in understanding the whole question of cultural dominance or hegemony or internal colonization. What is that we hold dear as our people, that this is the thing as a Nigerian, this is the lowest I can't go. This is the common denominator that makes me a Nigerian. People, they judge you based on your name. They judge you based on your religion. You may not even be from the section of the country that, God forbid, you are Igbo and you have Hausa name or Yoruba name and so on. So ultimately, until we have that conversation and agree on certain parameters of nation building, we can't, and I mentioned this when we started the conversation, say the US society, for example, the debate about the separation of power between the federal government and the state government. Rigorous conversation that went on, and agreement and understanding. That can change tomorrow, but at least that conversation went on. We tried to have a conversation the last time, about 10 years ago or so, when Jonathan put together the conference. You see how it ended. It was just a talk shop and people came, spended so much money. People just enjoyed themselves in Abuja and so on. Was it then was it the Lamido of Adamawa, if I'm not mistaken, he came to say something quite bizarre, to say if they won't, there was some disagreement, and he said he had his people in Cameroon that so, I mean, how can you are in Nigeria now, you're talking about having, you have allegiance to people in Cameroon. It's like an American, an Irish American who would say, oh, like his allegiance is not to America, it's to Ireland, because your ancestors and so on. Okay. No, whether you have your people or in Cameroon, or nobody bloody cares. You are in Nigeria, you have to do what the Nigerian constitution and law says you will do. So, my brother, I think it's about dialogue, it's about conversation, it's about endless talking. I think the bottom line, and quote me on this, we haven't talked enough about Nigeria and its problem.
All right, thank you, Chris. Let's go to ECC, Eccentricus. Go ahead.
Hello, good morning. Actually, good afternoon. I'm from Washington State, so it's 1 p.m.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Wait a minute.
Okay. It's noise also where you are. People are.
There's noise? Hold on. Why is that?
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. We don't have much time. Go ahead so that we can get to.
So my question is on your restructuring, right? What do you think about direct democracy, like ballot initiative, and how come we don't have social organizations in Nigeria, socialist movement in Nigeria? And what do you think about worker co-op? Just put them all like in one suit.
Did you say socialist movement in Nigeria?
How come we don't have socialist movement in Nigeria? And what do you think about ballot initiative being as because it's a direct democracy? How what do you think about ballot initiative being part of your restructuring?
Yeah.
Also,
So
okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so the question of direct democracy and ballot initiative, I don't think there is any problem with the democracy we have now or your recommendation. It's just what's democracy essentially. It's about one person, one vote, being able to cast your vote without any interference or limitation. But because politics in Nigeria is essentially a zero-sum game. So we
Sorry.
give.
Hold on. Let me explain the question very because I don't think you actually addressing the question. It's ballot initiative it's an initiative where during election in a ballot they will have like issues in the ballot, not just voting for candidates. So you have issues. Let's say if Nigeria wants to legalize cannabis, and they'll put it in it states, not just the country itself, right? The whole federal government. Let's say if a state wants to legalize cannabis, right? Legalize cannabis and put it in the ballot, right? What do you think? How do you think that will benefit like Nigeria? Or
I agree with you, and I was going to get to that. So it's a subset of the democratic process. You can. And that's what happens in advanced democracies. Again, it just goes to show how backward, for want of a better word, we are. Because then if you have states, local government elections, so here, local governments can't even manage their own elections. It's tied to the federal elections and the political parties. Because it's at the federal level that such initiatives can. I know in countries around the world, even to something as small as whether students should wear uniform or not, is put on the ballot for parents to decide whether the kind of taxes you pay, or whether to build a shopping complex or mall in certain area. Those things do happen. We haven't even gotten the bigger and broader one right. It's then going to be difficult. So even the whole idea of who to vote and be voted for, how do you select candidates for elections and ensure that party primaries are conducted in an open, free and fair manner, and present those candidates for election and the generality of the people who vote for it. But the initiative, I think it's a fantastic idea, and I think that's part of the main benefits of the democratic process and democracy itself. But we can't get there when we haven't managed to even solve the bigger problem of something as simple as registering and going on election day and voting for the candidate you want. We've not managed to get that right since 1959 that we'll be managing our election almost 70 years, down the road. So yes, when that conversation happens, things like these are things we need to be. When you have a restructured and better run Nigeria, local government will be able to, in a lot of societies around the world, it's the election of mayors or council chairman. It's quite fair. People put more interest in it because it's the government that directly affects them than they put in the federal government, because it's the local council that will determine how much they will pay for grocery, whether schools will be, school units or councils will be closed, whether more teachers will be employed, whether more classrooms will be opened, and so on. But you have a society where, even though we live in a federation and the federal government is supposed to something like primary education is in the exclusive list. That means something that the local and state government should manage. The federal government has taken over primary education. And so it's from Abuja that they do determine structure and nature of schools that will exist in Zamfara or Badagry or some far-flung part of the country. When the Minister of Education hasn't visited that state before, has no clue, hasn't visited that local government, has no clue what language they speak, how they live, and what they need educationally and so on. But when you empower the state and then therefore empower the local government, governance in Nigeria, whether in terms of democracy, in terms of economic development, and has to come from down up rather than from top to bottom. And it's only when we do that that we can then begin to really get the benefit of things like the ballot initiative that you mentioned. But we haven't even managed to get the simple democratic process of one person, one vote, or voting. And you vote. And it's not just about the election. Since we've been conducting census in this country, we haven't gotten any census right. There hasn't been any census conducted in this country that sheep and goats didn't complain that they were left out or they were overcounted. That's the tragedy of the Nigerian society. Quickly to the question about socialist organization, we do have, I belong to one, there are a number of socialist initiatives. Unfortunately, they've not managed to come together like they were able to do in the 60s and 70s. And again, I point to, yeah, I point, sorry?
I said I would like to be part of the organization. So
okay, so yes, we can connect after the conversation. There are a number of socialist groups in the country, and we relate with. There is also the socialist movement of Ghana that we connect with. I'm happy to link you up with some of these groups after the conversation.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Michael. Michael, one question, please.
Okay, one question. Okay. Dr. Chido, Professor Dudov, thank you so much for giving me another opportunity to talk today. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, Professor Chido. All right, just go straight to the question, and I really appreciate it because you've already spoken a lot about my takes and my idea about Nigerian situation, because every time we come here, we always talk, we don't give solution. But you have given a lot of nuance and ideas of this, how the country can move forward. My question to you today is this: has democracy worked for Africa? Because when we look at democracy today, we live in the diaspora and we see what the democracy is doing. So, and we find that the more we Africans have been ruling ourselves and we have been doing better. Because when I read the book, because it's true, Rudolph, I know this gentleman, what Britain did to Nigeria, this book right here, I found out that that's so much the British has done to us in a lot of damage, the indirect rule and everything. But to you today, in order for us, especially in Nigeria, as democracy work for us, which other way can we form a government where we give power to the people so much they can say, this is what we want, this is what we need. You are no longer serving us, you're good to go. Can you please emphasize and expatiate on that? Thank you so much.
Now, Chido, thank you. Michael. Chido, do you want to take another question and answer them together so that we can move faster?
Yes, I can. I have to run by the bottom of the hour.
Okay, all right.
Our guys top here harassing the whatever out of me. So I can, as democracy work for Africa, I can take the remaining 3 questions and then I'll just.
Okay, very good. Chido, so let's go to Igbo basics, your question, so that we can get Ife, and that will be it.
Please go ahead, Igbo basics. Okay, you need to do the whole cultural thing. I feel you, sir.
Igbo basic, you are muted, so you have to mute yourself if you are speaking. If you can't find it, we can go to.
So, Chido.
Okay.
There is only one place that I know that they answer Onumah. Are you from Abriba?
No, I'm from my mother, and I've not been back there.
Okay. But you know the name of the place called Abriba?
Yes.
You are not from Abriba?
No.
Okay. Those are the only people that I know that answer that name, Onumah.
Okay, Onumah is my own imagination. It has no meaning.
Okay, there you go. The people from Abriba do answer Onumah. So think about it. I've listened to you very carefully, and I don't have much else to add. You talked about the broken wall. That is from the Nigerian situation. And then you talked about Nigeria being a place is inevitable. I only will try to work with a couple of symbolism and close my mouth, but trying to stay away from talking. This is what I thought. This is called my own passport of Malamilia. You can see this passport. A lot of people here don't carry this passport. I still carry it each time. I carry this other one that says ECOWAS.
The first passport is what?
I call it the passport of Malamilia.
Malamilia?
Yeah, Malamilia is the original passport that Nigeria.
What year did you get that?
This was 1976.
Okay.
So
okay.
We still had a lot of people today have not seen this. So that goes to the question of Nigeria as a place that is almost impossible for now to break up. So if anybody is thinking that Nigeria is going to break up, the last time that Nigeria almost broke up was just after you were born, and that civil war.
Igbo basic, we have to round up. He has to go exactly in
5 minutes.
Okay.
Nigeria is a case of a broken plate that has no mequatorialism. That's what that plate is. But the only question I'll ask of you is, with your organization, the African Center for Media in Nigeria, and all the good work you're doing, the question I actually have for you is that how are you meandering, or how are you marching in that meandering entity called Nigeria? Because in your outfit and the things that you do, I would just like to connect with you to find out what you can do, as in 11 days, we are going to the book, Chief Zerudaya, the man and legend of New Masquerade. I'm sure you know that name. These are the people that came before us. In 11 days, that book will be released in Amazon. So my question is that with your organization, which is on ground, and the setup already have, is there a way we can hook up to make sure that this drum beat that we're loud soon can be made to be more meaningful in Nigeria? This is the book.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Congratulations. Yeah, please, on that question, you can reach out to Dr. Damages to get in touch with me. I'll be happy to discuss it with you.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Finally, Ife, your question.
On the question of how are you managing in Nigeria to still keep your face?
I will address your question. I just wanted to ask that one directly, but when I answer, I'll deal with the other question you raised.
Good evening, Chido. Happy birthday. Happy 60th.
Thank you.
This is my first time meeting you because you're always on assignment. So it's good to see you for the first time.
Thank you.
So my question might be different. If you're going to sell Nigeria to me as an investor, who has money, maybe a billionaire, trying to invest in my country, Nigeria. But I'm worried about coming to a country where there is no security, where they have 744 people that they're going to reintegrate into the society, and these are terrorists. And you have somebody like Nnamdi Kanu who is sitting in, Sokoto prison. I won't say for no reason, but I'm looking at him and I'm looking at 744 terrorists that you are trying to reintegrate in the society. I'm coming to invest in your country with no healthcare. I'm coming to invest in your country with no electricity, no water. The electoral system in that country is a shambles. It's okay for you to have a fake certificate and you can, still contest the election. You have a country where everything is just centralized in one state. And I, as an investor, and I'm considering to come to your country, how are you going to sell that market to me?
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ife. So I'll just quickly run through the questions. So starting from the first one about, has democracy worked for Africa? I don't think the challenge is about democracy. Rather, we should put the question this way. Have Africans worked for Africa? Have African leadership? It has nothing to do with democracy. People will say, oh, democracy is a borrowed concept. Democracy, no. And I started this conversation by addressing the meaning of democracy. It's just vote. And a society is supposed to keep educating its people and enlightening its people in terms of how they want that process of voting to go. So one person, one vote. These are the people running for election. We have a right to vote for them. We go on this day to vote for them. Of course, there are some nuances that have to be dealt with, and that's not the challenge of democracy. It's the challenge of each society. So the American democracy is money-induced democracy. You have to have Rudolph, you can correct me if I'm right, that how many hundreds of millions of dollars you need to have to run for US Senate, for example, not to talk of the presidency. But that's a democracy. The Chinese will call theirs communist or socialist democracy, just as the Cubans and so on. So democracy, it's about empowering the people. It's the theory or idea of one person, one vote, or government of the people. So it depends on what the people then decide to do with the government. I don't think democracy has anything to do with the fact that we've had leaders since independence, military and otherwise, who would steal money from Nigeria and go and invest it in Switzerland and other parts of the world. It has a lot to do with our society, our lack of belief. So you have a situation, and I wrote about this, for example, when you had a sitting army chief who had property in Dubai, and I asked the question that where would his allegiance be if, let's say, Nigeria were to go into war with the United Arab Emirates for something like that? Why would our leaders go on holidays? We prefer to go on holidays to, I don't know whether it's colonialism or what some people would refer to as colonial mentality, would prefer to go on holidays outside this country when we have beautiful places we can develop and, all of that. So it's unfortunate that the Nigerian society is structured in a way that those who control the resources have been those who have found themselves or positioned themselves to be voted for during the election. And that's what we need to change. I think our challenge has nothing to do with democracy. For me, democracy is a right and proper system of government. Unless something else better than it comes up, we should stick to that. But our own people, the whole question of colonialism, neo-colonialism, and so on, we've had instances, whether you're looking at Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, or even more recent, somebody like Thomas Sankara, who took power in Burkina Faso as a young army captain and transformed Burkina Faso. One of the first things he did was to change the name. I don't know how many of us know that up until 1983, Burkina Faso used to be known as Upper Volta, which was essentially a colonial name, just like Nigeria is a colonial name. Sankara took over power and changed the name to a nation of upright people, which means Burkina Faso. And that changed the psyche of the people. For 4 years, the agrarian revolution, the gender revolution, women were empowered. Massive changes just happened in the country overnight until again, somebody, his close comrade, Blaise Compaoré, was used by the colonialists to assassinate him, and took over power and ruined all the reform and everything. Today, I think he's in exile somewhere, sentenced to death or something. So that's the challenge. We need to have, unfortunately, we haven't been lucky to have such great men, leaders who would come up and transform our society in such a way that we begin to get the benefits of democracy. And hopefully, that's the role of all of us as active citizens, to continue to push, whether in the media and civil society, in whatever way we think we can, to push and have a society that works for everybody. Yes, colonialism, slavery, colonialism did a lot to upend the African society, but it's been almost 100 years in most places that the colonialists have left, and see where we are. We have not managed to pick ourselves up to do the right thing. It has nothing to do with democracy. It has everything to do with who we are, what we want to do, and how we want to do it. Then the question about broken plate. Yes, let's not think, when you say it's impossible for Nigeria to break up, I disagree with that phrasing or framing of the, yes, Nigeria can break up. Why not? No nation is sacrosanct. No nation is sacred. Nations come into being and go out of being. So let's not romanticize it to say Nigeria can break up. But the point is that if we break up, what are we breaking up into? We could break up into the pieces you describe of, that has no mequotarism. Like we are unable to pick, like Humpty Dumpty. We won't be able to salvage the pieces, or break up like Somalia, where every local government becomes a fiefdom and you have ethnic warlords championing this. But whether Nigeria can break up, of course, Nigeria can break up. There is nothing sacred or holy about Nigeria. So, and that's the question. I've tried to challenge that orthodoxy for many years now. When you say Nigeria, the unity of Nigeria is not negotiable. Come on. How did the country even come into being for you to begin to make such silly statement that the unity of Nigeria is not negotiable? We must negotiate Nigeria and continue to negotiate it as and when necessary. And then the question about surviving in Nigeria. Yeah, we managed to survive. Those of us in the media and civil space, it's tough. What can we do? We are Nigerians. We are resilient. We've learned how to survive everywhere we find ourselves. Rudolph has managed to survive in New York, in the US for many years. I don't think I can survive in a place like New York. I lived in the US for a couple of years, worked in downtown Washington, D.C. I used to commute from Germantown every day, and I couldn't wait to leave. So I think it's an individual thing. There are those who aspire to go live and work in the US. I visit the US, I have family there, but I don't imagine myself ever living in a place like the United States. It's my personal preference. Just as a lot of people would say, oh, I can't live one day in Nigeria and so on. But in the case of living here, it's quite tough. It's extremely tough. You talk about insecurity, you talk about convenience, light, water, and everything in between. But we are here. We'll continue to do what we can do and hope for the best. And then finally, somebody talked about, I think the question, was it Ifi, the last question about how to sell Nigeria. Unfortunately, I'm not a businessman. I'm not a capitalist, so I'll never find myself selling Nigeria to selling Nigeria to anybody. But seriously speaking, it's hard to do. So I may not find myself when I discuss Nigeria, whether to my students, to friends and colleagues, or people around the world, I make them understand the challenge we face as a people and where we are and where we need to be, and the unfinished business that is this country and the potential that the country has, and why we haven't been able to measure up to those potentials. Whether the people are convinced, whether for those who are business people who think that Nigeria is a place to make big money, quick and fast money. And a lot of investors, even with the craziness that is going on in this country, investors are coming and making it big, ripping up the country in partnership with the ruling elite here. And I do travel a lot. Most times you're coming back to Nigeria, you see a lot of foreigners in flights, whether from London, from Frankfurt, from Amsterdam, from Paris, and depending on the flight you take, you see a lot of Nigerians who are traveling. A lot of foreigners, whites, Chinese people, Asian people from Europe and America, who are traveling. Sometimes it's almost about 1/4, if not half of these flights are filled with foreigners coming. There must be something exciting about this place for them to be coming repeatedly, and they travel to places that those of us who live in Nigeria don't even venture to. Like those flights that go to Lufthansa, particularly, that goes as far as Port Harcourt, you find them. So there must be something exciting about this place that keeps attracting them, even with all the insecurity and inconvenience of life here. But I think Nigeria would work if citizens commit to making it work. It's going to be hard, but it's doable. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Chido, for being here. In the next 6 years, when we mark our 10th anniversary, hopefully you'll come back.
I'll be back.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. We'll take a break, and then I will say my thanks to people and meet you guys next week. right, welcome back. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show today. We had a conversation with Dr. Chido Onumah, who was one of the founders and co-hosts of this show until he went on assignment, and he will continue to be on assignment for a while. We'll decide on his fate later on. But I thank everybody who joined us, those on the comment section, those who watched at home. This is a good time to like and share the broadcast. I appreciate that. It's free. Also, I want to thank those that supported us by Super Chat and Riako Tobe, thank you so much. And Oscar Blackstone, thank you. They are the heroes. They are the people that make this work, because we have bills to pay. And it's a monthly thing. If at the end of the month we don't pay the bill, there won't be, the light will go off. We thank you all for constantly supporting us. We don't take it for granted. There are some broadcasts that came up and then they disappeared. It's because they couldn't keep it going. Again, let me say that next week I'm looking for, trying to reach out to David and Precious and some other people that are lined up. I don't.
He mentioned Odia Ofemi. That's somebody we need.
Yeah,
you
well,
know the man.
Those older people. There are some, technical problems with getting them, and then their health. There are so many things. I'm not very hopeful with those group of that generation. Sometimes it's difficult. You can actually do better if you're in Nigeria and go and visit them and interview them one-on-one than hoping to have a technological connection to them in Nigeria. But anytime we are able to do that, of course. I mean, like Eddie Manago that we talked about, I would like to have him on the show, but I know it's not possible, technically possible.
I hope I do not belong to that generation.
The what?
I hope I do not belong to that generation.
Oh, you are in the Gambia. Gambia is more advanced than Nigeria.
Generation.
But no, when I talk about Odia is retired. Eddie is retired. These are retired people. You are still teaching, so you're in a place that you are connected with technology. Again, thank you everybody, and let me see. I think
Odia was secretary to Awolowo.
Yeah. KJ is going to have his normal show, which will be an after show to this, which will give people opportunity to discuss extensively on what Chido said. I think he said some interesting things today that people who paid attention will have answers to some of the questions. We didn't touch on his arrest by DSS. We didn't touch on so many things I had in mind because of time. I know that he wouldn't be able to stay as long as we normally have our guests. But he continues to be relevant, and the celebration that happened on Friday last week for him is not something very common with most journalists, and he's one of those few that crossed over to play different roles. I didn't get to ask him about EFCC when he was there and what he thinks is going on today at the EFCC, which I wanted to hear his insight. And then there's this question about the media. I didn't have the chance to zero in on, his doctorate dissertation was about media survival, and zeroing on whether the media can survive without foundation and grants from foreign corporations. I know Nigerians.
I think he alluded.
He touched on it, but he didn't zero in, because Nigeria. I want people to hear from people like that, because Nigerians think that, this is a terrible thing. It has to stop. If it stops, there's no paper. If it stops, there's no Premium Times. There is no Sahara Reporters.
I think my argument is how do we stop it? Because I think it's part of what he said, that we have not had a conversation enough. And he went ahead to say that there are some conversation that even center on kind of like think tank level. We projected something that take decades and decades, and I think this is one of them, right? How do we, since this is our reality, so it can't continue like this, but we have to start talking about how do we stop it. So what are his ideas and all that?
So one other thing along that conversation is maybe when David comes here or some other people, we have that conversation is look at the American media. I think it's something in Britain because I read The Guardian in London. I read The Times and their newspapers too. You find out that these days when you go to read them, they want you to subscribe. Okay. So think about this. If you subscribe to New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, and then you subscribe to London Times, London Guardian, and Daily Mail, by the time you finish, you may have a bill of over $500 to be able to read basic newspapers in the world every month. For those like us who need to read those papers, Wall Street Journal, you have to read The Economist.
But Dr. Ameji,
so hold
why
on.
do you think?
Hold on. What's going to happen is that people are not reading it now. So only the institutions, the elites, and then they are dividing the world now to people who can afford to read the New York Times and those who will be forced to read only the New York Post, which is still free for now. But that's the only way the papers are going to be able to survive. And when there is information vacuum or real information from real newspapers, people now read what they can read. So you now see people reading the Enquirer, if it's still there. I don't think it's still there. Find people reading the Post or what they call the tabloids as their source of newspaper, the news. And that's damaging in the long run if you think about that. It's not going to be.
We get in from TikTok.
Why is it that? Why is it this?
Go ahead, Ovie. After you.
Why is it our private billionaires and millionaires are not taking it? Just like in America today, the likes of Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, the private individuals are pretty much buying the media space, and because they know the importance of that. So I think one way for us to actually push back, from the outside investor is for our own indigenous people, the likes of Dangote, but they totally stay away from the media space. Instead, the politicians are the one, investing in that space. So is it that it's just something that they know that we don't know all what's
so something like the Champion newspaper was started by Iwanyang. Okay, so it's not just Vanguard. The guy who owned the Vanguard, he's not a politician. The Guardian is not a politician. Although historically, if you think about Zeke and the West African Pilot, and think about Wolowo and the Tribune. There's also the Sketch, and so it's not just we had that mix in Africa. But the point is that media institutions are not profitable on their own, especially now. In the past, the New York Times and Washington Post, they were very big and profitable, but now they are not. They can't even afford to pay their people. They are struggling, so they are trying to find new formula to be able to survive and be able to sustain themselves. It's difficult. In Africa, it has never been profitable, especially in Nigeria. If you know the number of papers being printed in Nigeria today, you'll be ashamed of the country, and they struggle to pay people. It's not like they are making money. And most people so you find real business people like Dangote, he's not going to invest in something that he knows that historically it doesn't make money. And the reason why some people invest in the media today is to have influence, to have power, to have influence and use it to do other businesses. Dangote doesn't need that. So most people it's better for them to pay the media, buy the media, than to own it, to have that problem.
It doesn't easy because it doesn't have competition. By the time we have like 10 billionaires, 20 billionaires, I think we'll invest in that.
What I wanted to say is this. I have thought about that for a long time. I did a 10 paper on that media business. Here is what I think. You see, while we're growing up, there are a lot of institutions that have been bastardized now, largely because the Nigerian government or the Nigerian, administration, politics or whatever, refuse to patronize those institutions. One of is the post office. Remember when we were growing up, you could go to a post office and buy money order and post your distance, and it will get to where it's going without issues. Now, in my secondary school, you could go to a newspaper section. The school buy newspapers. So those of us who like to read newspaper and news will always go there for time to do your research on those newspapers. Now, the reason why these things are going down the way they are going is because the institutions have stolen all the money, and they are not. They're not. In fact, the more ignorant the Nigerian people are, the better for all of them. You remember also we had an issue when they started introducing the FM stations instead of the AMs, because the FM stations were only entertaining people. They play all the nonsense junk music and no time for other research or even deal with issues that are tropical that will help the school. You remember when I was in secondary school, some of our government teachers would say, go today, this program is going to air in this AM station. Go listen to it, write your essay based on what you hear and bring it to school and we debate about it. Those things are no longer available now. What is there is now show me your backside, show me your backside, move your backside. That's all. So the people's brain and everything have been fried. They nothing, and government is interested and is not interested in reviving those things so that this cycle will continue. Nobody can ask them any question. Nobody can say anything. Look, if we are truly people who want to revive our nation, there are many avenues the government can create job overnight without even having to do anything. Just revive the railway, revive the post office, revive those things that are there that people have killed because you refuse to finance those things. And one of them is revive newspaper. Make it also mandatory that schools, institutions around Nigeria, we all have, even if you're going to pay from your government purse, every secondary school, university will have newspaper supplied to them. You will know that you're not doing that because you like the newspaper, but because you want to sustain people in their work. And afterwards, this thing will automatically pick up again. I used to buy newspaper, just like Chido said. We used to buy, if we have money, we are interested in going to buy newspaper to find out what we can see of the news from GMPP people like Wazir Ibrahim, Aminu Kanu. What are they saying? You want to read their existing and understand the new terms and how they're describing things. It's no longer there. Those has gone.
They are online now, though. They are online now. Does that count? Does that count?
Okay. Light in Nigeria.
Yeah, Rudolph.
Hold on, Igbo Basics. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Quite a lot of things. First, the media has issues because people don't lack of reading culture these days. Okay, social media, and like I was trying to tell you that if we don't get the New York or the economics, we get it from TikTok. So that's TikTok. You can't read the economics now because of TikTok. So you can always get this thing from TikTok, whether it is correct or not. It doesn't matter. But more important to me is the culture. I keep on saying the importance of culture in human development. It's very important to understand that some people run things very well, while others don't have the culture of running things very well. The KJ mentioned the railway and post and telegraph. When the white man was in Nigeria, they used to have the Igbos run all those things until they used to have, there was one this thing seminar I attended. So they were discussing how when after the Igbos were sacked from, or when they were killed off from northern Nigeria, so the post that usually gets from Lagos to Kaduna in 2 days now takes 1 week, to get there. So you see how things so from there, everything starts going down the drain, so it's not like it's the culture. And they're doing it so that people can become poor, so that they can control them.
sorry, guys. I don't want us to mash these two programs together, which is KJ, we do this where you have extensive time to discuss the details of what happened. I'll just let Igbo Basics say something and then we end it and go over to KJ's show. Igbo Basics.
I try to stay on my lane and I try to work with symbolism, even as much as we've been called the other generation. I'm still proud of that generation. When I put on this cap, let us all be careful as when we answer a name. There is always something in a name. A lot of us don't realize when you say you are so and so. Somebody is able to take on that name and place you where they should place you and be able to extract what they need to extract. I came on with not a barrage, with some very simple things direct, linked to a place called the Small London. That Small London is Abriba. You have to pass through KJ's place and pass my place before you go to Abriba. The people of Abriba answer Onumah. And the real meaning of Onumah, I don't know the meaning of Onumah's own Onumah, is actually like if you do Onumah. It's something that is, when you look into the meaning of Onumah, it carries a lot of weight. When I put on this cap and I looked at the face of the young man, who I would say is an extension of the 20 pounds. And after all the conversations he held, when I talked about broken plate without Mekwaterism, I was really directly talking about out of ruins comes, because if you know what the East was before the war, and then when the war ended, even if I was talking to my wife this morning, I said they gave us 20 pounds, 20 pounds, because our question was, why is it that the people are always after you guys? I said they gave 20 pounds, but out of that 20 pounds had grown the real character of who the people are. And I still say to the Nigerian state that until they realize that those weapons that they go and buy from the foreign countries can be locally made, until the Nigerian state decides to reinvest or to invest its funds in its local, until the Nigerian state begins to take care of its people. Let us be careful each and every time we come out to anywhere. And I will always put on this. I will still remain Igbo Basics. If you like, no matter where we go, if we put on this, if you don't like it, that's who we are. I'm so sorry to say it. And that should carry the weight it will carry all along. So to me, the young man of 1966 from Deolumbe, I appreciate everything that the gentleman has talked about. When I talked about meandering country, because there are people who are in there, they can't even talk straight now because they've been so contaminated. But you can see somebody who has gone through the crucibles and is still standing with some level of integrity. And now he has a permanent head damage, the PhD.
Thank you so much. Ike, just to say hello to you. How are you? Hello, welcome. We are rounding up. We are actually ending the show. I don't know.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Sunday. Dr. Damages, how do you want to close the...
Yeah, there is another show. KJ is having a show immediately. Let me share the link so that
I know. I just want to tell you that thank you for your book. I got it last week.
Okay.
But I have not had time to look at it because of so many things, but just want to say thank you. I got it on my mailbox last week.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. And we appreciate you. Let's end this stream, and then for those who want to join KJ, this is the stream where you can join. I'm sharing it on the comment section. Again, thank you for joining us. You can like and share this stream so that more people will see it. I will come back next Saturday, and we'll continue the conversation. And on Sunday, 90 Minutes Africa next week, we'll get you one of another interesting guest who will be here to share their ideas and help us understand what's going on in the country. Again, thank you, Igbo Basic, for being here. Thank you, Ovie, for being here. Thank you, Mr. James.
Who would they get next week?
I don't know.
Not yet.
Confirm. I have to confirm. Yeah, it might be. I'll call David and see if he will be free to join us. Thank you, Mr. James. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Ify. Until next time. All the best.
Tó fẹ́ kú torí ẹ̀. Ọwọ́ ẹni ló ti ṣàánú kọ́. Ayé la bá, ayé la fi sílẹ̀ sí. Ọ̀nà èyí yóò.
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you. Have you subscribed? Yes, you. Have you subscribed? You. Yeah, before you go, click. It's free. Click. Just that's it. Have you subscribed? You're laughing. Have you subscribed? Have you subscribed? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, madam. Thank you so much. I can see you. We have to get to 100,000 subscribers. By the end of the year, how are we going to do that if you don't subscribe? Yes, you. Yes, you're about to click off. Why? Have you subscribed? It's free. If you don't, ask your son, ask your daughter how to. Just one click. Thank you. I see you. Aha. Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow.